Justin Bieber's the one singing the song, but he has somebody that's writing the song. Multiple people writing the song. He's got people engineering the song, but it's not frowned upon there. People still love Justin Bieber. It's just that in dance music, there's this stigma that you have to do everything. And yes, do people get help on their music? Absolutely. You take any big guy in the industry, they play 150 shows a year. At what point do they go in the studio and start producing their music, but then they're releasing 30, 40, 50 songs a year or putting out albums? It's physically impossible. So everybody gets helped, and I don't think you should be ashamed in being the guy that helps at first, because you'll be able to develop these relationships and these connections and maybe even make a career for yourself.
Amazing, man. Now we are like doing podcasts at like 2 separate time zones. That's insane, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I'm new to recording them, so this is my first one. Well, my buddies, I don't know if you watch it. Let me get some cool lights here too. Yeah, there we go. My buddies have one called The Get Down. It's basically like an open format DJ podcast kind of. It's actually called now Grow My DJ Business Podcast. I know, horrible name, but they're getting better with it. And I've been a guest on it a lot. And to be honest with you, like these clips of like me talking and the coaching and all that, I'm sure you guys know too. I've been really crushing on Instagram and TikTok and stuff. So I try and do them as much as I can.
The Get Down, is it like from DJ City?
No,
I don't think so. That's like the Road podcast, right?
That's the Road, yeah. And I think they're sponsored by Digital Music Pool, technically. So I don't know, but if you want, check it out. I mean, I'm on it. I have another episode coming out this week, but I watch your guys.
You're like a regular.
I'm like the unofficial third host. So like when one of them can't do it, I like to step in and talk, because a lot of the guys that we coach, they do it more on the open format DJ side. I do it more on like the business side. And a lot of the guys are very young. They're in their 20s, so 21, 22, 23. So they're just getting their feet wet. So like that's mainly who the podcast was for, and then it kind of grew to like everybody, you know. So it's been cool.
Yeah.
But you guys have been doing your thing too, which is awesome. So
I was like watching this also again a podcast yesterday where this guy interviewed Paddy Galloway, who is most famously known as Mr. Beast YouTube strategist, right? And he also did stuff for Red Bull. So basically, the dilemma comes where do you do more kind of like commercial stuff before you niche down, or do you niche down then you go more commercial? That's something that like every artist always has problems with during their journey. You know, do you try to capture maximum amount of people first, get people to know you before you kind of like, you know, niche down to who you are? I don't know. What's your take on this?
I talked about this actually last week on that podcast, but I always say naturally you start by just doing local stuff, right? Like there's no way you're going to try and get everyone to know who you are. So you do local stuff, you do birthday parties, you'll do whatever you have to do to DJ. And the problem is when you get a little bit of success with that, and for us here, like in the US or really in our market around New York City and New Jersey, is that a lot of these DJs right now become very complacent with playing bars, which is okay. They're not clubs, but think about like you're drinking with your friends, you're making money, you're playing every weekend, you're like getting girls, you know, for most of them, and everything is all nice and grand. And what happens is they get very comfortable right there, you know. And I know a lot of guys still who are, in my opinion, really big and great DJs, but they get stuck there, where I was always on a different path. I was always, you know, producing and making music, and I was doing, you know, a lot of that other stuff with always the big picture in mind. And yeah, like you said, was I doing those birthday parties and stuff? Yeah, like for sure I was doing them, but my end goal was to get everybody to know me and to get, you know, my music worldwide. And it's funny because like I talk about even today, that my music is not big in my city, like at all. Like no one really plays PURARI music, but you go overseas to where you guys are. You're in Korea or
Singapore.
So you go to Singapore, like a marquee Singapore, or you go to, you know, one of these other Asian countries or European countries like, you know, Amsterdam, Belgium, and my music's being played all over the place. So it's weird to try and measure your success based on what's going around you in your market when your success is really happening in other markets, which has always been the weird thing for me. And it took me a long time to realize that.
It's like Mern. I'm not sure if you know who Mern is.
Mern, I don't know.
Mern basically is like his music is, I think, best described as emotional dance music, you know, like EDM, but emotional dance music. So he started off with like future bass and stuff, but now it's going more to that melodic house. And first Singaporean to play in Tomorrowland, as well as recently just got signed on LENERD's label, so it's doing very well. But majority of Singaporeans do not know him. But when he goes to SFO, oh my god, like the shows are like wow, like crazy,
right? Yeah.
You know, similarly to another podcast that I watched, right, recently when I was like going for a run, it's a Singaporean podcast of all. They were discussing a Blink One, is it Click 5 or something? I'm not sure if you know the band Click 5. It's like a American band, and it's like it's not big in America, but everywhere in Singapore, in Manila, Philippines, you know, we are idolizing these groups of people. So it's like the world is a huge place, man. And if you're not making it in your city, right, doesn't mean all is lost. And dude, by the way, I just want to tell you, right, when I told one of my friends that I managed to get the Purari podcast, they're like, "What the fuck, Purari podcast? How the hell did that even happen?"
That's awesome.
Everybody is like, "What the fuck?" Everybody in Singapore is like, somehow we definitely play one or two of your tracks. Definitely, it's huge here, man.
And maybe even some of like the older ones too. And we'll talk about that when we get like more towards the academy and kind of how that got started. But you know, I had to take a big step back from Purari, especially because I've been working on another project, like a side project for the past 3 or 4 years, which I finally was able to take a step back from. And if you kind of look at who I would make music with, you could probably connect the dots, I would say. But I try and keep it a little bit more low key. Maybe when we stop recording, we could talk a little bit about it. But yeah, and you know, now I'm finally, I signed with a new management, signed with a new agency, and now I'm kind of getting back on my horse, and I'm going back on tour this weekend, which I'm really excited about. So, you know, a lot of big things happening, you know, mostly US touring. But, you know, I a lot has changed for me in the last year. You know, I got married, bought a house, had a baby, started the PURARI Production Academy happened, you know, really after COVID. But there's just been so many things that have been happening. But, you know, just trying to manage everything at once and keep my head on one path.
That is insane. You started a family in the same year that you are going to tour. Isn't that going to be like super stressful?
Well, I actually, like, my daughter was born, she was supposed to be born in February, but she was born in March. And in March, I had talked with my wife back in like December, like, hey, is it okay with you if I do, like, I had one tour date, I think it was in Charleston, South Carolina. And I was like, hey, it's my residency. Do you care if I do it? You know, it's a very quick flight. I'll go there. I'll come back. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Then I was like, well, what about Miami Music Week? Because I've been doing Miami Music Week for the last, I don't know, 10 years of my life before I even met her. She's like, yeah, that we'll have to talk about. Okay. So then the baby was born, and then it was like, I already booked Charleston, and I was like, do you want me to cancel it? Because she had gone through a C-section surgery, which was unplanned, so it was pretty painful for her. And, you know, I went, and that was really tough, especially with a newborn baby at home. And then Miami, our compromise was I was only going to go for 2 days, and thank God I did, because that's one of the reasons why I signed with my new management and agency. But you know, I did, and it was really tough leaving them at home. So pretty much after that, I stayed home, and now my daughter, she just turned 6 months yesterday, and this is a really good age because they could basically like not sleep through the night, but like, for example, she woke up once last night, hence my espresso that I'm drinking, because it's gotta keep me awake these days. But yeah, it's a much smoother ride than the newborn phase. So I'm curious to see how the touring is going to go. It's much more intense. It's every weekend now, from now until the end of October. So the next 2 months I'll be gone. Yeah.
Because I guess we are like probably around the same age, like 30s, headed to 40s.
31. Yeah, I just turned 31 a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are kind of like in an era where residency used to be an amazing opportunity to get regular income, but now it kind of feels a little bit like it might be taking up too much of your energy, and stay at home kind of work kind of makes more sense right now for us, which is the whole reason why I started doing more content, doing podcasts. Hopefully, eventually, it can be something that I can monetize off of rather than relying on touring. Because, like, you know your David Guettas, you know your Steve Aoki, how brutal touring is, and starting a family is gonna be so difficult with all that kind of commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my POV.
Yeah, I mean,
but is that the same motivation that you have?
The touring and the DJing for me really was never the long ball, if you want to call it that, right? Like, so I think in this industry, like, it's all about longevity and what you can do to stay relevant the longest. Because, yeah, like, you know, you think about what we do for a living. We make and play music for a living, and we get paid for it. That sounds crazy, right? Like, it sounded crazy when I told my parents, like, you know, I'm not going to go to medical school. I want to pursue my DJing because I've been doing so good with it. But, you know, the long ball for me was not DJing. I mean, you named a couple guys like David Guetta, Steve Aoki, Carl Cox. That's only a few names that are doing this till they're 50. And you got to remember, DJing hasn't been around that long for us to see like an 80 or 90-year-old DJ yet. So these guys, even now, you only see a handful of them. Can you have success and just make it in your 40s and 50s? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You could look at guys like Chapter and Verse, or TJR was a big one that, you know, he was telling me a long time ago about how he made it like when he was 42 or 43. But for me, the long game was always right here in the studio, because I know I could sit here in the studio till I'm 80, 90 years old, whatever, and still make music. Granted, my hearing doesn't go shot, but for me, like, this is the long game for me. And starting a family, like, my family's right upstairs, right? When I'm touring and stuff and all that, do I still want to tour? Yeah, absolutely. There's times where I still want to go on the road and tour. But for me, I know with a family and everything, like, this is the security. It's not going out 4 nights a week and playing a bar or taking an airplane or whatever, doing 150 shows a year. Like, if that happens, then I'll be super blessed. And I think our life situation and family situation would drastically change for sure. But for the average person, I think that you should keep your head down and focus in the studio, because this is where, you know, I think the longevity is. Because if you could develop your skills here, you could go on tour if you want. Hell, you could pick, you know, what days you want to tour, because if you're so talented and so in demand, you could say, like Calvin Harris, you know what, I only want to play like 4 shows a year, you know? So, you know, I think that it's really important if you're a young DJ or producer just to kind of stick here in the studio and just get your skills as good as they could possibly be.
Wow, that's so true. Like, when I was younger, I definitely had that touring mindset. But then as I got older, and especially for myself, where currently I'm not married, but I have a super long-term girlfriend. And then these kind of thoughts start to cross my mind, and then it really changes the way I do things. I really seek sustainability over everything else. And then everything else is just like like what you say is like a blessing, you know, it's like an extra thing.
Yeah, I mean, you said, like, you know, when you get older, right, you start to think about these things. Well, I think everybody does. I think it's natural that, like, when you're 21, 22, and you're getting some success and you're playing, you're DJing, you don't really think about that stuff. You're just in the moment. You could do it all. There were times where, you know, when I was touring, when I was 21, I was, you know, playing till 3 a.m. in Miami, taking a flight back at 7 a.m, and then like going somewhere else to a different party and playing. Like, you could do that now. I could barely stay awake like past 10:30 now, which is like so funny because I'm like in bed by like 11. But at the same time, you know, you think about these things when you get older, and you think about like, oh, well, is this a career? Is this sustained? You think about all of your friends maybe that have gotten married or, whatever, or maybe they have real jobs. Maybe they work in an office, or maybe they have a business that they run, and there's sustainability there, right? Because there's that level of comfort and sustainability. But I think in our industry, whether you're a DJ or an artist or a singer or, anyone that's in a creative field, there's always that thing in the back of your head of like, well, if I don't keep up with the trends, I could lose this all in a second, or I could start back to ground zero. So how do I keep it sustainable? And that's always been the thing for me. Is I think it's the quote by AM, right? Like AM said, find something you love so much and then find someone to pay you to do it, right? So that's why that quote has always stuck with me throughout my entire career. Was I love it for sure. I love what I do. Well, now how do I get so good at it so that somebody can pay me for it, right? And I think it's important to have those multiple skills as well, because do I get paid to DJ and play these clubs? Absolutely. But now I mostly get paid, and I just made recently a thread about it on Threads, which I've been loving so far. But I talked about 5 ways how you can make money as a independent DJ or creator, or whatever you want to call it, without having a hit song. Because in my eyes, I don't have a hit song. Ooh. And I talk about, how you can mentor like I do now with my PURARI Production Academy. You can monetize your content, right? So if you make a tutorial on how you made, your track so-and-so, okay, you can put out a 10-minute clip of that on YouTube for free, but give the hour tutorial out on like a Patreon, or start a Discord community where people could pay to get some of your stuff. You can monetize mashups or edits, especially like for someone like me. I don't give out my mashups or edits anymore because I want myself and my DJ sets to separate from everyone else. So I keep those pretty personal, but if you subscribe to my Discord or whatever, you can get access to my edits. So there's all different types of ways you can make money without technically having a hit. You just have to be good at what you do. And that's always what I believed in. I don't think I'm talented by any means. There's no one in my family that's musical. I just believe in like that hard work ethic and being really good at what you do.
Very true. And the fact that when you have a family and when you have commitment and when you are touring so much, right, the travel itself could potentially result in an accident, who knows, right? The more you move, the more risk there is, transfers, layovers, etc., etc.
And you just like, I look at that stuff all the time. It's morbid really to talk about, but look what happened in that plane in Brazil, like it's so sad to see that stuff. And, especially when you're touring, like I always say, the worst part about touring is the actual touring. Like everyone thinks it's like this rock star lifestyle. You go, you play, you do this. No, like you're in this little metal tube for a couple of hours. Then you get to a hotel by yourself. If you're lucky, somebody in the city that could take you out or show you around and stuff like that. But most times I'm sitting in my hotel room, like going through music or taking a nap or whatever. And then, you wake up, you go have dinner with the promoters. Again, if you're lucky. If not, you fend for yourself. Like for me, I always love a good hotel bar, I say, because I love just like going downstairs to the hotel. If they have a restaurant, I'll eat there, or somewhere, down the line. And I just sit at the bar and I drink, and I'll have a drink or two just before my show. And then you play the show. Yeah, that hour, 2 hours you play is really fun. Like I always try and get to the club and talk to the promoters, especially if it's a new venue. Like I'm playing a new venue this Friday in Dallas, Texas. And I'll always make it a point to try and meet the managers, introduce myself, let them get to know me as a person and not as PURARI, meet the waitresses, whatever I got to do just to like show them that like, hey, I'm a cool guy and I'm here, I'm not this like diva superstar DJ. I'm really down to earth. And, I'll play the show, and then maybe you get a couple drinks and you stick for a little bit after your set, take pictures, and then you go home back to the hotel. You're on an adrenaline rush and you have to try and get a couple hours of sleep because you have a 7 a.m. flight the next morning after you finish at 2, 3 a.m. And then it's back in the metal tube, and then you get home, and then, if you're lucky like me, you have to do it all over again the next day, the same routine. So for me, having a routine at home is really important. Like, again, I wake up at 7:30 in the morning with my daughter, my wife and I usually drink my coffee, get in the studio really early, go to the gym 5 days a week, come back, and then it makes the touring, I think, a little bit easier because I know I could come back home and just jump right back in that family routine or whatever it is.
Yeah, we probably can go over what your typical day looks like, but before we change the subject, right, I think another very important point to point out is acts, duo acts or trio acts like Above and Beyond, Medusa, Vini Vici, they do not all tour together. If you realize there's only one guy that's doing the touring, right? Then the rest are like producers, but they still represent the brand in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, it's becoming a little bit more popular. Like now I see with like Medusa and like those guys. But for me, it was always like watching Bassjackers, Marlon and Ralph. So Marlon pretty much stays home and produces the music, and Ralph is the one that goes out on tour. So Ralph can handle playing. I mean, those guys play so many shows. It's insane. Like those guys can play, like Marlon can go and play like, I guess, 150 something shows a year. Well, Ralph could sit home and just make the music. And fortunately for me, I was lucky enough to meet Ralph actually in New York City a very long time ago. It was one of those rare times where they were playing a big show. They were actually playing with my buddy MAKJ at Governor's Island here with bingo players. And this was like 2013. I was still like very new to the production. Well, I wasn't new to really anything. I was in the scene, but like I was very like 2 years into music production. So I was still brand new. And, you know, Mac brought me out. I've been friends with Mac, really good friends with Mac for like probably close to 14, 15 years now. And, you know, Ralph flew to that show and we were able to talk a little bit about it, and I was able to pick their brain a little bit about it. And he was like, you know, it's the best of both worlds. I could sit home because that's what I like to do. I have a wife and all this stuff. And, you know, Marlon can go out and he could play the shows. And, you know, that's how we became a duo, is because we realized that I love this one thing, he loved this one thing, but we couldn't do the other that the other one did. So they said, let's just combine forces. And, you know, there came Bassjackers, and they're still doing that today. It's 2024 and they're still touring as much as they probably did back then. And listen, it works for them. But I think that's such a cool thing. Like if you're a great DJ, go find maybe a producer and say, hey, dude, I'm a great DJ. You're an amazing producer. Let's join up and see what we could possibly do. I think that's such a cool thing that like maybe not a lot of American guys think about doing, but maybe for, you know, Asians and Europeans over there, that's like a thing that like, I'll use my skill, you use your skill, and let's work on this together. But there's that meme, right, where it's a bunch of guys climbing up steps. I'll send it to you so you can like post it on a clip. But it says like European DJs, and it's like all these guys walking upstairs and they're all helping each other. And then it says American DJs, where like they're all like falling down the stairs and one guy is at the top. But it's so true. It's like I've always felt like American guys are always looking to one up each other, where, you know, guys in Europe and guys in Asia are always looking to help each other. And that's kind of where like I've stepped in with my school and like my other friends, the Get Down guys. We just talked about them a little bit, but we've been trying to help and bring a community together around it, because I feel like that was something that was missing really in our industry. And, you know, I think we're doing a good job with it. I can't speak on what other people think, but I think what we're doing is really invaluable and awesome.
Yeah, because most of the time, right, I think in the consumer's point of view, when they look at a DJ, oh, so this guy is playing Tomorrowland, he must be the one making all the amazing bangers, you know, and that's what the audience normal association is. But like, I think, I don't know, but probably true fans or informed listeners, they kind of probably know like, okay, this is the DJ of Medusa, and then, you know, once in a while, big event like Tomorrowland, and all three of them show up, and then the two other guys, they're just chilling at the back, drinking champagne, they're the one making the music, right? Yeah, but some people don't feel too comfortable with that arrangement. Probably not because of the, I don't want to help, it's not really because of the, I don't want to help you, you don't want to help me kind of thing. More like, you know, I'm up there, right? I should be the one producing the music. You know, it's like that authenticity kind of thing. and then end up they have too much on their plate, and then they just like burn out, you know.
Right. And, you know, I think 2013, 2014, that era was so infamous because people started exposing ghost producers, right? And yes, this has always been a thing, I feel like. And I think in EDM, it's a little bit more frowned upon because in dance music, like, you're supposed to be the DJ, the producer, the engineer, all this. But if you look at any other music industry, pop or whatever, they have an artist who, you know, just performs basically. Let's just take a look at Justin Bieber, for example. Justin Bieber's the one singing the song, but he has somebody that's writing the song, multiple people writing the song. He has people
4 people
producing the song, right? He's got people engineering the song, but it's not frowned upon there. People still love Justin Bieber. It's just that in dance music, there's this stigma that you have to do everything. And yes, do people get help on their music? Absolutely. You take any big guy in the industry, right? And you look at them, they play 150 shows a year. At what point do they go in the studio and start producing their music, but then they're releasing 30, 40, 50 songs a year or putting out albums? It's physically impossible.
Yep.
So everybody gets helped. And I don't think you should be ashamed in being the guy that helps at first, because you'll be able to develop these relationships and these connections and maybe even make a career for yourself, because not everybody's going to make it, you know? What if your calling is to be the producer that's producing for these major artists and you're making a great career doing that and you love doing it? That may be your calling, you know? Or what if by producing for X artist, you meet their manager and they realize the talent that you have and then they sign you as your own artist. So you never know what door opportunity may open for you by doing that. And you could take it from me. I mean, I've been producing for other artists more so in the last 5 years than ever before. Like, one of the biggest songs that I co-produced or helped production-wise was Left Right with, it was a collab between Hardwell, Dioro, MAKJ, and Fat Man Scoop. And dude, like,
damn.
R.I.P. Fat Man Scoop. He just passed away.
Dude, if you can see my hair now, my hair is standing, dude. Yeah. Fucking insane.
Yeah, well, thanks to MAKJ for bringing that opportunity to me, because I helped him pretty much like solidify that track and finish it. And I helped him produce the drops on it. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's weird to think about it. Like, when I heard Scoop died this weekend, I was like, man, like, you know, I was fortunate enough sometime along my career to work with him, not directly, but on a song together. And you know, it's cool because those opportunities came from producing with other artists. And I'm not going to say like that opened the door for Revealed or anything for me, but you know, every time I saw Sebastian Lintz and I say, oh, you know, this is what I'm doing, I just worked on this song, or I just did this, he was like, oh, you did? Really? Like, so, you know, it opens people's eyes about, like, you know, what you've done in your career and, you know, kind of what you can do. Because if people trust you to work on a record like that, most times, like, they won't sign you on the record label because you don't have this following or you don't have this experience, or in today's world, you don't have, you know, X amount of social media followers or views on TikTok or Reels. But if you are a industry professional and you make these connections and you've done X, Y, and Z, then they'll sign you just from the good of their heart sometimes, you know, especially if you make good music. So I think it's super important to you know, take every right opportunity you get. And believe me, there are times where I've ghost produced it for people, or co-produced, we'll call it like that, and it wasn't the right opportunity. You know, it was a waste of time. It was a waste of money. These people were just doing it so they could have a hit record or whatever. It's not like that. You have to, you'll see when you go a little bit deeper in the roots of the industry, who you're going to do it for, who you don't want to do it for, because of who they are as a person and, you know, kind of what opportunities will come from it. So.
Are you able to review how these kind of opportunity come about, as well as like what are like the payment schemes like? We do not need to like go into detail, but maybe something to do with like, is it by percentage or is like a one-time fee or something like that?
It all depends. So, I mean, since this is, it's not like an NDA or anything, I could talk about, you know, like the track I co-produced with MAKJ. It's called Worship. And I'll talk about this one because, like, my music is not like, I mean, you know, my music is a very big room, and that track is a big room track for sure. But like, I don't ever see, you know, Martin Garrix or, you know, Alesso playing my stuff. So like, you know, those guys, I always used to joke, like those were guys that would be on my support list that are missing. Like everyone's played my music so far, except for like guys like that. And it was funny because at Tomorrowland, I believe 2 years ago, Alesso and Garrix did a back-to-back, and they played Worship, MAKJ's track, and like I was like, oh man, I finally got supported by these guys. Like something I produced, they've played, which was awesome. But you know, a lot of these opportunities, like that track Worship, have came through either relationships I've made with like a MAKJ who brought it to me and was like, yo, I just need help finishing it or mastering it or engineering it, whatever it may be. Or like just somebody, like word of mouth has been really big for me. Like a lot of my students and a lot of my stuff has been coming from like, oh, if you want this done, you should go to this guy because he's the guy to do it. You know, like I've kind of been like taking the role as like the quote unquote, the finisher, right? So I'll finish a lot of music. And the way it works is basically before you engage in anything, I'll always say, get something like in writing done. So whether it's I'll take a fee and no points on it or percentages, or I want a fee and maybe 5 points or something like that. It's all dependent on what you feel comfortable with, you know, especially like for records that are like sampling other records, right? There's really no money to be made in that because all of the publishing is going to go to the original artist. So recently I just worked on a song where they sampled a big record. And I came back and he was like, well, what do you want? I'll give you, you know, I'm making up numbers here, but let's say I'll give you $500 and like 10 points on the record, but it's going to be with a huge artist, like a huge pop artist. Okay, that sounds good, but guess what? You're not going to make any money on it because you sampled a record. But if you replay the sample, then there's money to be made, right? Like there's a little bit of money to be made because now you can make money on the master and all this other stuff. So
what's the difference between sampling and replaying?
Sampling is someone's intellectual work, right? So technically, they're the writer. It's their composition. Because the minute you go in the studio and you write something and you make something, you own 100% of the copyright. So if you sample something, that artist will receive 100% of the copyright in most cases, unless you clear a sample, right? So you take a look at like that A-Craze record, Do It To It, right? Bounce with it, drop with it. He sampled that one, right? He sampled the vocal. That's, and I think he sampled the synth line, the dun, 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 or maybe he replayed it in the final one. I'm not sure. But he had to get that cleared, and Cherish came back and said, hey, we want this amount of money, probably this amount of percentage, and we want to be featured on the record. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you look at the record on Spotify, it's A-Craze featuring Cherish, right? So they wanted a piece of that because they knew it was going to be so big. And yes, he probably doesn't make that much money on it, A-Craze, because he had to clear the sample. And I don't know what their deal was, so I can't speak upon that. But what happened was the song got so big that he was able to tour from it. And that's where the money was made, right? Was the touring. Because he knew once this song comes out, I'm going to be touring like crazy. And I don't think he released a song in a year and a half after that. He was able to tour for a year and a half playing. I couldn't tell you how many shows off of that. And now you see him come out with these other bangers and stuff. So they kind of had to like scramble and be like, well, what's my sound? What am I going to do to follow up after this? Because this record is so big. But if you replay the sample, like for example, my new track Insomnia that just recently came out, you can get what's called a mechanical license, right? Where you still have to credit the original people because it's their writing, it's their chord progression, everything is theirs, but you only have to give them some of the royalties, right? So whether it's just on the publishing side or just on the master or a little percentage of both, and you could release it under your name because it's like if some cover band went to a bar and just started, you know, covering a Michael Jackson song and they would record it, wants to release it. That's totally fine. Or if you take a look at country music, right? Luke Combs covered that song Fast Car. So, you know, there are ways to get around it now, but it's cool in this time because, you know, you're able to provide familiarity with the original song, but you're the artist kind of behind it, you know? And like you said, a lot of the fans, quote unquote, don't know that this was an old song. I mean, look what David Guetta is doing, right? He just did that new song with what's the new song with One Republic? What's it called?
The old Italian song Dragostea Dinte or something, right?
Well, it's the one. I don't wanna wait.
Yeah.
I don't wanna wait tonight.
Yeah.
But you just said it. Like that song is like that song. Maya he, Maya ha. Right.
Yeah, by Ozone.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny that like the fan thinks that is new. Especially like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. But that's already a song that's been out before. So you can get away with changing stuff up. And I want to say he just got recently nominated for another Grammy on that one. I could be wrong, but my friend Timothy.
Is it for I'm Blue?
On Blue, he did get
Grammy
nominated for that because my buddy Timothy Rezanov worked on that with him, and he also got Grammy nominated for that. But again, take a look at somebody like Timothy, right? Who's constantly working on other people's music. He's not the artist, but he's working on David Guetta's music. Or you take a look at like, I don't know if you remember these guys. You might because you were kind of in that era. But do you remember Toby Green and Mike Hawkins?
No.
Toby Green, you definitely look in your Serato for Toby Green. You may know some of his tracks because he was releasing stuff still in like 2018 before he completely disappeared. But Toby Green and Mike Hawkins used to have a record label called Megaton Records. And they used to sign guys like Henry Fong and Dubs back in the early days. And it was really cool big room stuff. And now they're writing and co-producing for Galantis and all these guys. And again, they walked the red carpet last year at the Grammys for being nominated with David Guetta. So co-producing isn't bad. Like you could, if you get put in the right opportunities, you could win a Grammy for that stuff. And like, how many music producers can sit here and say, would you like a Grammy? That's my ultimate goal. If I had a gold Grammy in my shelf, like, in my opinion, I'd make it, but like you can get those opportunities by producing for other artists, and guys like that do it. So
for a lot of our casual listeners, right? Like for example, a good example is the MAKJ song that you worked on called Worship, right? If you go to Spotify and you search Worship, right, there's only artist MAKJ, that's it.
Yeah.
But there's no other credits. So how can an artist properly credit their co-producers, or do they choose not to? Like obviously MAKJ did, because you can go in depth for the credit, you can actually see it, right? Yeah, but most people don't actually know that there's actually, you can click more and then go to song credits and everything.
Exactly. Like it's funny because that's where it becomes ghost production, and that's where it becomes co-production, right? So a ghost production would be you sign an NDA and basically you get a fee, and then that's it. You have nothing to do with the record. You deliver the record and that's it. You're done, right? A co-production is somebody that like is not ashamed to be like, yeah, I work with other people on the record. Or, it can get tricky because if you worked on a record and the song, like even if you just did a chord progression for it and you sent it to your friend or whatever, and he releases the record without you on it, well, technically I wrote that chord progression, I have it in proof right here, you could get in trouble for that, so I think it's really important as you're working on records to be very transparent at the very beginning on, if you help me with this, I'll give you credit on it. Or as when you sign a song, you have to list who worked on the song, right? And this is stored, and I'm not sure how they do it in Asia or Europe, but for us, we have two companies, BMI and ASCAP, and those are like your ways of like crediting properly, like who's on what record. So on ASCAP, I could search on the ASCAP repertoire. Like I could search a song and see who's credited on it. But again, this is more for music industry professionals because fans don't necessarily care. All they care about is who's the artist behind the record. Like people don't necessarily care about, let's say, I don't know, like a what the hell is his name? I can't think of Dua Lipa's. Ian Kirkpatrick, right?
Justin Bieber.
Well, Ian Kirkpatrick makes like a ton of Dua Lipa records, and he's one of the most insane producers. If you're a music producer out there, go on YouTube, find his streams, like that he was doing 3 or 4 hour streams. He's an amazing music producer, but like no one really cares that Ian Kirkpatrick is the producer. They only care about Dua Lipa being the producer, but Ian Kirkpatrick is the one making the magic. Or you take a look at like this is the most recent example of music, but take a look at like Oliver, right? And maybe you know his sample packs on Splice. He's got Oliver Power Tools 1 and 2. Well, the producer, quote unquote, behind Expresso by Sabrina Carpenter is like, I guess, let's call him the producer, right? He put 2 Oliver Splice loops together, a guitar loop, or let's call it a melody loop and a drum loop, and that was Expresso. It was 2 loops put together. I think he maybe added a little bit of extra guitar over it, but nobody, like Oliver doesn't have any credits on that song. 0, because he gave away free royalty samples, you know, and whoever took that loop and that guitar loop and put that together is the producer, and I'm sure they're probably running to the bank right now. So it's really tough, and you know, that's the downside of quote unquote maybe monetizing your content, is that if you do sample packs and something like that happens, it stinks, you know. But when there's risk, there's reward. So I'm sure he does okay, Oliver, with everyone else making money, because everyone uses those samples. They're so good, especially like someone like Cashmere. But you know, Cashmere doesn't get credit for the Taki sample or any of those. Yeah, so
yeah. I saw the stream, man, and he posted it on Twitter. Back then it was still called Twitter, right? And then he tagged DJ Snake. Oh my God, what the heck, man?
Yeah, it's, you know, you don't get the credit for that. Dude. But it's interesting when you realize what's going on. And you know, if you are into this scene and you are a fan, you mentioned before, yeah, you will be invested in that. Like, you will be invested in the stuff that goes on behind the scene. But really, I always say to my students, like, it's like that one troll, right? Like, where let's say you use a Cashmere loop in your song, and like people are afraid to use that loop because they'll be like, oh, they're going to know on SoundCloud it's a Cashmere loop or whatever. But does anyone care about that in Taki? No. Does anybody care that Mi Gente is a preset in Arcade or Output Arcade or whatever that synth is? No. It's just that the only people that care about that are other music producers. And yeah, you may get hate for that, but guess what? Like, who cares? It's a small percentage. If you have a hit record, no one's going to care about that, you know? So, yeah, just kind of do what you love and just don't care about other people's opinions. Just make what's cool.
So many songs are like massive presets. Like, literally, you just press one button. Okay, got it, you know? Or maybe like, I don't know, Serum, like the most recent trend, right? The Afro House that then you put the Afro House drum on top. It's literally the like, Serum on INT.
Yep. And it's funny for me when I first started producing, like I was going through, you might remember these, but like the Vengeance sample packs, which I still use today, or like the Nexus, early Nexus stuff like this. I still have the Nexus CD over here. That's how old I am, because it came on a DVD back then. But you know, you go through those sounds and you're like, oh, that's the sound from Pon de Floor. Oh, that's the sound from, you know, Axwell or whatever. I think even, I forget which pack it is, but like Calabria. So dun 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 dun. It's funny, if you go through Nexus synth shots in one of the packs, you hear the dun, then you go to the next sound, it's the dun, and then you go back. You know how you do it as a music producer, you go back, you're like, let me go back, and then you go dun 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 dun, and it's like, oh my God, that's how Calabria was made. Is he was going through Nexus synth packs and like was like ba 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 ba. Oh, let me take this and resample it, and Calabria was born. So, you know, it's just funny going through some stuff and realizing like these guys just do what we do. It's just getting that creative spark and putting everything together.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the end result matters over so many things, as well as the fact that I think creativity is the one that pays the bill, you know?
Yeah.
It's not about how you do it.
It's not about how you do it or how it sounds. It's the creative aspect. And, you know, back in my day, I came up, I guess, in the scene with a lot of talented producers. So there's a lot of talent over here in Jersey. There's a lot of talent, like, in New York. So it was very tough to quote unquote make it, but I did come up with a lot of talented guys. And, you know, one guy specifically, like 4B, he used to play all of the teen nights that we did here in Jersey with me, and we're the same age as well. Bobby actually just had a kid too, him and his wife. So we share like the bond, like they're like 2 months apart, our kids. So like our wives were pregnant together. They were going to like baby showers together. So like it was cool, like, you know, going through that with Bobby too. We kind of like reconnected just having kids the same age again. But, you know, I saw Bobby like have this hit record called, one was called Bomba Clap. Like that was like his first record. And for me, I was always like, oh, you have to have a hit record and it's got to be mixed and mastered and it's got to sound good. Like it's got to be the top quality. But then you take a look at the record like Bomba Cloud. If you listen to it, like it's not the best mixed and mastered record in the world or whatever, but the idea was cool. And for someone like me, I didn't understand the idea at first. But then you take a look at everyone overseas. I remember my buddy being out in LA and they were like, where are you from? And he's like, New Jersey. They're like, oh, you know 4B, that record Bomba Cloud. And he was like, that's the record like you think is amazing, you know, but it's because that Jersey club sound was so fresh for them over there where we've had it always. And then you take a look at his next record, Whistle, that blew up, which I was fortunate enough to do one of the official remixes on it. There were like 20 people that did official remixes for that on DJ Snake's label. But again, like that record is not the best like mixed and mastered record in the world, but the idea was dope to put a whistle sound in a time where big room synths were dominating, you know, put a whistle sound behind a big Jersey club 808, and that's literally the drop, you know? It's a whistle and an 808, and that was the biggest track played that entire year. So sometimes it's just more about the idea than actually what else is going on under the hood. And that's where I have to dumb myself down a little bit when I song right now is this idea good? Like, and if it is, finish it. But if the idea is not initially good, it doesn't matter how much it's mixed and mastered. It's not going to do well, you know? So working on the ideas and getting a catchy hook is way more important for me before I even finish the song than, you know, just to work on something blindly.
Agreed. And it kind of brings me back to a little story time of that's how I first discovered you, because we were having this like mini obsession of bass music in Singapore, and our first international booking was DJ Tease from New Jersey Club as well.
Yes.
And then, you know, he has the first official release on DJ Snake's label. And obviously the first release, they want to make it super big. So like what you said, right? They put out 20 remixes of Whistle. And you know that song is basically Whistle 4B featuring Tease or something like that. It's like their song.
I think it's a collab,
and then a bunch
4B and Tease. Right.
Yeah. And dude, Tease was like doing turntablism and everything while DJing Jersey Club. Everybody, wow, we all just died, man. It's like super insane. And then a few weeks later, I saw on DJ City, hey, there's like a Purari remix or something. Like I was looking through all the remix, and the one that resonated with me the most. And then I have a night at Zouk main room, which is like a 2,500 capacity back then when I was a resident. Wow, the reaction is so good, man. And that's how we kind of like first met. And wow, I still remember that day, man. Well, that was such a good song, and especially on the speakers, you can really hear like, oh man.
Well, it's funny too because like I obviously knew you through I think Revealed mostly, but I do remember you guys giving me such early support like in that time. So like eternally grateful for that. So thank you. And it's funny because, you know, I got one of the official remixes only from really just growing up with, you know, Tease is younger than me actually, but with Bobby and with, or 4B and Tease, he actually was also a teen night DJ, like, cause we had teen nights where you were able to go to like these clubs at like 13, 14, 15 years old, like some of the biggest clubs here in Jersey. And Tease also did start as a DJ there. So like by the time he was like 19, 20, he already had, I think he started Tease, like he was younger than me, but I remember him opening up for stuff for like club lights, like for us. And he must have started at 13, 14 as well. Cause it was like the cool thing to do, like to be a DJ. So by the time he probably got to you guys over there, he was already skilled enough and like talented enough that he's been doing this for so long. He wasn't like this new guy on the block, you know? And yeah, he was really into Jersey Club. He made some killer remixes that I still find myself going back to and playing today. But to be honest with you, I haven't heard from him in so long. I hope he's doing okay. Like he kind of like disappeared off the face of the earth. And I think he's doing most of like I want to say he's doing production still, but like maybe for other artists, or he's working on his own project. I don't know, but it's too bad we don't have him in like the dance music space anymore, because he was really like crushing it. But that Whistle remix was pretty big for me, and I remember a lot of people, like I know Dioro played it like at Electric Zoo and like stuff like that, and people were like, dude, the mixing and mastering on that, how did you do it? And I was like, I don't even remember. I remember spending a lot of time on that. I think that was the first time I used like the Oxford inflator plugin, which was, I don't use it anymore, but like it made it like so loud.
I just used it yesterday, man.
I don't use it anymore, but I remember using it on that record. And like, it's funny, like if I opened up the project, like, and I go back and like look at it, I'll be like, what the fuck is going on in this? But I remember I remember that using the Oxford inflator and EQing the whistle so much, because it was, again, just like a poorly mixed sample, but it was hurting my ears so much. And I just like EQ'd it so much until I finally got to where I wanted to sit. And even still, like I'll play it and I'm like, I gotta like turn the highs down because it like completely destroys my ears. But that was fun to make. That one just happened so naturally. And I think that remix did so well because it was so different from the other ones. I think a lot of the other ones were like, you know, think about the remixes on the pack. There was like Nitty Gritty, Buy Low, all these like dubstep guys at the time. And I just went out of left field and did this big room offering of it with like Psytrance, and it worked. So
yeah, and at that period of time in Singapore, Psytrance was kind of pretty new. And one of the head DJ bookers of Zouk, right, was like, yo, there's this global trend. Psytrance is like coming up. It's going to hit the mainstream. Let's just make a gamble on Vini Vici. And, you know, in Singapore, we are pretty slow on the music uptake. I would say like Europeans are the fastest, then followed by the US, and then like Asia is like the slowest, in my opinion. And living in Asia my whole life, right? And then the fact that he wanted to do Vini Vici, we were like, oh, really? And it's such a huge like monetary investment, right? That we're like, oh shit, man, we hope that it works, man, because it's like already taking over the world, but Asia still didn't have that uptake. And then with that Purari remix, and then that Vini Vici night like magically worked. We all like going crazy, celebrating in the office, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's like
big success.
We didn't lose money tonight, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, like, yeah, I do feel like Asia sometimes is a little bit slower with the trends, but I feel like that's because like, especially like in China, right? Like with the limited like social media restrictions and stuff like that. I feel like that's why they're a little bit behind, but that's okay, because like, you know, I take a look at my progress and I'm like, okay, well, in this time of Jersey Club, let's call it 2018, my music was not big and everyone was like, you know, obsessing with, you know, trap, dubstep, especially here in America. And I was like making this big room stuff and I'm like, well, I'm getting frustrated. Like, why am I not getting booked to get in Jersey? Or like, why am I not playing these shows? Like, my music is like, you know, doing X, Y, and Z, and I think my music's better, but I didn't get to see the success of that until like maybe the next year, where, you know, I released a song like the Whistle remix a year ago, and just a year later, it started getting picked up by like, you know, a lot of Asian DJs. I would get support or like tagged on Instagram from a lot of guys in Asia playing my stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, my stuff isn't big here in Jersey. It's big in Asia. Like, and that's kind of where I focused my attention to, where like, you know, I feel like Jersey guys and New York guys are just super obsessed with New Jersey and New York. They don't think about other outside markets, which is why
represent.
Yeah, and you know, like that's why I feel like I was able to break out of that space. And I get asked by students a lot of times, like, how did you break out of Jersey? Well, stop being obsessed with what's happening here. You know, look outside. Like we're like a pit stain in a giant country, and then like there's the rest of the world. Like I could get booked in Italy for thousands of dollars because I have a hit in Italy. Like my friend Castra is going to Asia, I think specifically China, in the next few weeks because he has a hit song in China. It doesn't do shit over here, but like in Asia, it's huge, right? So these promoters are now bringing him out to, you know, perform there because the song's so big in Asia, like trending on TikTok and stuff. So, you know, you never know where your stuff's going to hit. And I think when you target your audience and you realize where it's big, that's where you'll find a lot of success.
Another question that I have in mind, right, is that in Singapore, I mean, our okay, like for example, right, I think the typical I don't know if I want to use the word connotation or I want to use like maybe POV lah. Like from the West, you know, the POV of the East is like, okay, we are a little bit more restricted by our government. But I would say, particularly in our country, Singapore, we are more like in the middle. So it's like if you are super controlled in, let's just say China, and you're super free in US, right? Picture a 50%, that's where Singapore is.
Yeah.
Okay, so oftentimes we are always saying that, oh, you know, the government is not supporting the arts. It'll be easier if I can move over to the US and I'll definitely make it, you know. And they will definitely quote an example like you know, oh, you grew up with 4B, that's how you managed to get these kind of like big breaks. Whereas in Singapore, it's like impossible for us to get any of these big breaks. So I don't know. What is your perspective as a person that's like living in US? Is it indeed easier or is it actually worse?
No, it's probably harder.
There's so many competition.
It's definitely harder because you think about you guys, right? Like there's definitely not as much competition locally for you guys. And I always tell my students in my PURARI Production Academy, like you want to be a big fish in a small pond when it comes to this stuff, right? So you want to be one of the biggest fish in the pond so that you're at the top of the food chain. You're the first the promoters think about. You're the biggest in your city, right? Because if you're not big in your city, like I'm not going to say you're not going to make it, but it definitely helps being the biggest in your city to now go to other cities, especially here in the US. But the problem where, you know, my market's from is that like we're big fish in a giant pond, right? So yes, there are big fish, but there are also like small fish or medium-sized fish, and that they're also now eating and getting bigger, right? So it's a lot harder for us to quote unquote make it. But at the same time, you ever like hear like a business like let's say a coffee shop and they're doing well and then another coffee shop opens right next to them and it's like, well, why would that coffee shop open right next to it? Well, no, because it creates competition, and competition sometimes is good, you know? It makes you work harder, it makes you do this. So for me, yeah, did I grow up and DJ clubs with 4B and, you know, a lot of these other guys? Yes, absolutely I did. And that's what made me the artist that I am today, is because that competition and seeing what they've done and trying to stay on my game always kept me on my tippy toes. And that's why I was able to, you know, keep excelling and progressing. Maybe it's a situation where, like, for example, there's not enough people in your circle that are helping you push the boundaries a little bit, you know? Like for me, I keep people in my circle that help me push. Where like my manager will be like, yo, this isn't good enough. You got to do this. Or, you know, you got to go play here. Oh, well, I don't want to go play there. Trust me, you want to play here. Like they'll give me these reasons to keep pushing and maybe not stay comfortable, because it's easy to fall comfortable. So moving to LA or moving to New York is not going to help you make it unless you are bringing something that separates you from everything else. So whether it's this podcast, right? Let's say you move to a city where there's no podcasts and now you're becoming like the best known DJ in the area because you host this podcast, then yeah, that's the right move for you. But I always feel like location is a lot of it, and just keeping, you know, competition, you know, going, at least friendly competition in your market. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to blow up if you just change location. So
yeah, these are two very good points. It's like in Singapore, my neighbor is like, you know, bunch of unknown DJs, right? So obviously it's easier to become big in this very small pond. But then for you, it's like your neighbor is 4B, you know, that's like crazy.
Right.
How do you even like, you know, top that? Yeah, that's a great perspective.
Yeah, and you know, we still have very talented DJs here that just want to be DJs. So there are turntablists and stuff like that, you know, being from New York, that like they're amazing DJs and they just want to DJ these clubs. And yes, do they have the opportunity to travel some of them now? Yeah, definitely sometimes. But some of them just want to play in Jersey. So now you have to compete with that as an EDM big room artist. I'm trying to compete with like this turntablist who's insane. But fortunately for someone like me, I come from like an open format DJ background, almost like I was playing hip hop and stuff. Like I always loved dance music, but like in college, like that's all I would play is hip hop and this and that. So yeah, can I walk into a room and play anything, or can I reset the room? Yeah, absolutely, if I have to do that. But if you're booking PURARI in 2024, you're going to know it's high energy, fast dance music. But can I dip down to hip hop? Absolutely. But I think that's what makes it like a cool experience for the fans, because they'll be like, oh, yo, he just played a Party Up DMX record. Like, yo, that's amazing. This big room guy just played that, right? Because they're expecting to hear big room, and then I'll play that. But then, you know, you'll take that turntablist from New York or that guy that's been DJing all of these genres, and he'll be like, well, what's so good about that? I play that record every single night. Well, yeah, you play that every single night, but you also play this record by Bad Bunny, and then you play this record by Hardwell, and like the fan doesn't know what they're going to see and pay. Like, they're not buying a ticket to go see you because you play all of these genres. Like, yeah, they may have purchased a ticket to go see you play because they loved your Bad Bunny set last week, but then this week you're playing and they spent money and you're playing all dance music. So that's why, like, when you're making that transition from an open format DJ to an artist, like I mention this quote all the time, but Eminem said a quote like, if you stand for nothing, or if you stand for everything, then you don't stand for nothing, right? Stand for something, stand for a genre so that people know, and then you can do all these other things, but stick to that one thing so that people know you buy that.
Great advice. Yeah, I love this. I've also seen something similar on DJ Spider's podcast. Yeah,
James Hype and Spider. Resident. Yes, that's great podcast.
Yeah, and like especially for myself, I was a resident DJ for 5 years, and then the transition to artist, wow, definitely not easy, man. You're gonna be losing so many, you know, opportunities, gigs. But I guess the kind of opportunities you lose are the small to medium ones. And as an artist, you don't target your regular gigs. You know, you go for bigger ones, I guess.
The minute I had the most success, and I think like it's funny because my career has been, I had a career under the name Mikey P for like half my life, and I was doing very well with Melbourne bounce music, and then I had switched to PURARI in 2016. But like my career spans half my life, like 15 years, right? And I've had a success as Mikey P, I've had success as PURARI, but people think I came out of nowhere and blew up like 2 years ago. No, that's literally not what happened. What happened was I touring and playing these big rooms like as PURARI and or Mikey P? Yeah, absolutely. But then I got caught in this open format circle where like I was playing these bars 4 nights a week and whatever. And that was all good and fun. And I was making my music. I made some of my best records during that time, like Beast, and I was playing them at these bars or whatever. But the biggest thing for me was I had a residency, multiple residencies where I had booking power as well. So I was booking the DJs every week. So I was curating the entire night or party around who I wanted to book. And it wasn't until I let all of that go and then I started taking bigger opportunities, because I felt like I was no longer this $300 DJ. Because if I was still playing clubs for $300 US or $350, $400 US, then why would another promoter pay me more if that's what I get? So the minute I stopped doing that and then asked for a bigger fee, not only did I get it, but all of my fees went up and I started getting booked outside of my market for even more, you know? So it was like that moment where it was funny. I was actually like just getting back on the road. This is like 2021, right after COVID. And I was in the airport going, I think playing for my first time in South Carolina. So I had just played in Gainesville, Florida. Crazy show I played at a fraternity party. And I was flying to Charleston, South Carolina to play my second show. And I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. I was really inspired. And I was listening to that Spider podcast, and I was listening to James Hype say, yeah, I did all this. I played all the bars and clubs here in London. And I took that step to say, well, if I want to be about one thing, I have to do this, this, and this. And that like solidified my decision to do what I did. I was like, I did make the right choice. And I did do that because I saw James Hype go through the same thing. And now I'm not known as this open format guy. I'm known as this artist, and I can do X, Y, and Z. So that was the biggest game changer in my career. And no, I didn't quote unquote blow up overnight. I just made the right decision for my career to say, if I take a step back from this, I'll take 2 steps forward doing this, and it worked out. I think.
But how long did that one step take? Because like from having regular $300 shows to going cold turkey and waiting for the next big opportunity as an artist instead of a DJ? How long did that take you?
It didn't take very long.
Did that take a lot of like conscious maneuvering?
It didn't take very long, to be honest. It happened like almost instantaneously. The thing was that I was ready for that opportunity finally. You know, like I had a record on Revealed with collaborations with MAKJ. I had an upcoming record coming out on Dimitri Vegas and Like Mike's record label, Smash the House. I had multiple releases on Mixmash. I had this relationship with Laidback Luke. I was co-producing with MAKJ. I was ready to finally take that leap to be like, okay, this, and I, thankfully, we talk about circles. I had multiple people in my circle being like, dude, what are you doing? Get rid of this stuff. Like, it's time, you know? So I had my wife at the time telling me like, just do it. Like, take that leap. I had, you know, some of my friends in the industry be like, dude, you gotta like, what are you doing? You gotta start like making the next move now. So fortunately for me, I was able to do that, and it pretty much happened like instantaneously, but only because I was ready. And we had to realize that like I was ready for this right now. And, you know, yeah, I gave up booking power. I gave up venues and I did all of that, but I was ready to take that next step. And I also had my PURARI Production Academy, which was like another skill of mine that was like, this business was a COVID thing and it blew up. It's still we're about to hit our 5-year mark this upcoming April. Wow. Which is amazing. I still can't believe it. But, you know, I had all these things like ready to go, and it was like, dude, it's time. It's time to break away. And I was talking about it in a podcast the other day, but I was trying to think of that movie where they were like, let go. It was like that was playing in my head all the time. Like, just let go and do it, and the rest will work out.
So, is it, what year was it that the transition finally took place?
I want to say it was like 2022, like, because I was still doing my residency, but it was a weird time, I'm sure, like you guys too, like after COVID, where, you know, I lost all of my gigs, like my residency was lost like that. And for us, we didn't get back to DJing until a year later. So we went back to DJing in, I think, March of 2021, like literally almost like exactly a year later. And it was weird because we were playing clubs, but everybody had to sit down and have to be spaced out. So that was weird. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. And then I went through that year. I was pretty much doing it a lot because, don't forget, we weren't making money. So I was trying to DJ to you know, buy a ring for my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time. And, you know, I was doing it. And then like, the next year happened, 2022, and I was able to get back on like the road. I rekindled a relationship with one of my agents, basically, and he was like, I could book you here, and here. And he was also using me for a lot of my expertise on how like the scene worked in New Jersey. And instead of getting paid, I said, just put me back on the road, you know, like get me some of these other gigs so I could see if I still want to do that. And I did. And like, I want to say it was like March or April of 2022 where I was just like, I'm done. Like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be doing this. And I saw the rates I was getting and I was like, this is when I want to do it. And it's been like, you know, 2 years of like touring now, almost 3 again. And I prefer this a lot more. I DJ less.
More sustainable. Yeah.
But I get paid more. So, you know, it's and the gigs I play are the right gigs for me. It's not playing the bar in Hoboken, New Jersey anymore, or New York City. It's I'm playing this main room nightclub as the headliner where I'm the one that's being showcased. And, you know, like that for me has always been the goal, was to always be the headliner, not to be, you know, the bar DJ playing 5 hours. So.
Yeah. So back to your initial thread where you are discussing about new generation and opening DJ. I spoke to quite a lot of Gen Z DJs on my podcast, and that was actually a few months ago when I saw that thread, and then I spoke to them about it, and their common consensus was like, there's no such thing as opening. You just go in and bang, and then the next DJ bang, and then it's based on your followers. If your followers come, it doesn't matter what the previous person plays. That's their philosophy. What are your thoughts on that?
It's such the wrong mentality. And I was getting like two sides of the spectrum on that thread because, I was just sitting there like creating threads because I got advice from somebody like, if you can create controversy on threads or like Twitter or any of these platforms, kind of like what John Summit does, you'll get some people away, like you'll shoo some people away, but you'll gain the fans that like really agree with you, in that mindset. So I was just trying things out, and I started that thread about opening DJs, and it got a lot of results. Like, I definitely shooed away and got a lot of DJs away from me, which is totally fine. You're not going to please everybody, but the people that were agreeing with me were all saying the same things. And, let's call them my haters, were saying like, I think one kid was basically trying to hate on me, saying like, that's not right. Like you said, you should be banging it out. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to showcase what I do. And I'm like, well, that's not the right mentality for the room, right? Because now at 10 o'clock, when people are casually coming in, trying to grab a drink and just kind of like chill before like the night starts, you're sitting there playing 150 BPM. They're like, already like dumbed out of their mind. They want to leave by like 12 o'clock, and they don't realize like, great, you did a great job. You made a fan, but you're hurting the club. You're hurting the DJ after you. You're hurting the revenue of the club because people are leaving because they're already like banged out from that. Right. And not only that, but like I started as a opening DJ for a lot of the bigger guys. Like when I was 19 years old and I made it out of the teen nights, I started opening up for like, my first big opening was for Afrojack. And then I started with Zed and Sonnery James and Ryan Marciano, and then Rehab, and then all of these, Dyro at the time, and all of these big guys. And I was literally just opening for them just so I can talk to them and get a relationship with them. And, through that opening, I would do the research. I would go before and say, okay, what was Afrojack playing in his sets? I would go on, his radio shows or 1001 track lists, and I would say, okay, he's playing these records. Let me stay away from this. If I did download a new record, I would just make sure he hasn't played it in the last month or two. Okay. Then I would prepare my set. I would prepare folders of like energy levels, right? So I would start the night with maybe tracks I thought were energy level 5. I treated them like Uno cards. So I would start with a couple 5s, then I would go from a 5 to a 6, and I would go a little bit higher. And my goal was to bring the energy right here so that when the headliner played his first track, the club exploded. And then I did my job as an opener. And not only did I please the promoters and the venue and everything else, but I also made a relationship with like the bigger DJs because I properly opened, and I think that's a lost art today, especially with like this ADHD crowd. And I don't want to say that for anyone that has that disability. I'm sorry I put it that way, but, like it's true because we're living in this time where like people, like I always say like a house party, like I don't know if it happens for you, but like I have a younger brother, and when he was like 18, he would play a song, let it play for 30 seconds, and then he would switch to the next song. And it's like, that's what you want them to do as a DJ. So like, you got to remember, like these kids could have every song or any song like with just pressing a button. Back in our day, we couldn't do that. You had to download the music. There was no such thing as streaming, right? So they could have any song demand that they want. So they come from an era where they want things on demand, and they think that like, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'll get success, because I'm playing the same set as Fisher or John Summit. But that's not how you get success, I think, in this industry. I think it's more about paying your dues, gaining respect, doing the right things the right way. I say by this invisible DJ book that like it's like a book that's not actually written, and you have to like learn the book as you go on. And I feel like for me, I was able to have a lot of respect in my career because I've done things by the book, by that book. Paying my dues and doing all that. And I just don't think it's the right way. I think that mentality won't get you far. It'll get you short-term success, but it won't help you in the long run.
Yeah, it's kind of like a code of conduct. At the end of the day, it's just to be a decent human being, like a lot of new DJs are always thinking like, okay, if I get good at being an opening DJ, then that's what I'll be known for. Then people will just keep hiring me to be an opening DJ, and that's the end of my career. I believe that's what they are thinking, which is why the moment they have an opportunity Like, for example, if they are opening for Fisher or something, then they will like, start attacking some big tracks or something. And in a bit of like maybe making the headliner don't look good so that they can look good in that sense. But like what you say, that's not really the right thing to do. Maybe you win this night, right? But your career is not just about one night, right? It's about decades.
It spans decades.
Persistence.
Exactly. And like, that's such like a bad mentality, because by being the opening DJ, you could understand how the night works, how the night's supposed to flow, how to keep bookers happy. Because if you're not making music, then your job is to basically keep bookers happy at the end of the day, right? Now, if you're banging it out at 10 o'clock, like, you're not going to make the bookers happy, like I just told you, because people are going to leave or whatever. But like for me now, because I was an opening DJ, I understand the flow of the night. I understand that at 10 o'clock when the doors open, people are walking in, they're not ready to fucking, rage or whatever. They need to like walk in, grab a drink, keep it slow, but like they need some space to dance. They need like to hear like just like a nice, 125, 124 BPM type of stuff. And I love going to clubs early to hear the opening DJs play, because I love that style of music. And then as the night progresses, you get this buildup of energy, and then this magic starts to happen, right? Where like the energy's picking up, the people are flooding in, people are starting to get a little drunk. Like it's this magic that makes the night memorable, and it's this roller coaster of a journey. And for me, like, that's the magic of what I knew as clubs. Like I loved the journey of like walking in, hanging out, talking to people, then dancing, then doing this. Like, that's the roller coaster. And I think now as being an opening DJ and now being a headliner, if I have a bad opener, now I try not to like get angry, because I'll always be the guy, especially as a coach, to be like, hey man, you did a great job, but you should do this next time, from a headliner's perspective. But it makes my job frustrating, because I know I have to reset the room. Because if I go on and the guy's playing big room 128, well, I'm like, and they're not feeling it because he's been playing it for the last, or she's been playing it for the last 30 minutes. Well, now I have to come in and reset the room, and I can't do my big intro or whatever. I have to reset the room and maybe play hip hop for like 5-10 minutes and then play my big intro and reset it, because they didn't do a good job of keeping people at the bar or keeping people dancing, But I always will, at the end of the night, say, hey, this is what you did wrong, in my opinion, and I think next time if you open for me or the other guy, they would appreciate if you did it like this, which is gradual buildup of energy. So,
right, agree. But certain times, right, depending on the country also, the warm-up differs. Like, very good example, right, is in Singapore. At my time at Zouk, we are not able to play like a proper warm-up, at least back in the day. Now probably people more educated, right? Like maybe like 2017, 2018, the warm-up set literally leading to the guest DJ is usually like big room stuff, because if you don't do the big room stuff, the crowd just simply wouldn't come in. And then like maybe 15 minutes or half an hour before the headliner, we would like down it to like, maybe house or deep house or something, to kind of like give it like a semblance of an actual warm-up. But it's basically not an actual warm-up, because if we were to do the real warm-up, where we like, I don't know, start from deep house to maybe like piano house to like, something that's like a level 7 or 8 energy, the crowd wouldn't even show up, everybody would just go to the hip hop room. And that's like the consumer behavior here. And that's why we have to like kind of like trick them to like come into the room and fulfill our role as like opening DJ. So I can understand why certain times when like international DJs come and then they look at us like, what the heck are we doing? It's like we are doing like some sort of like reverse warm-up in a way, but that's just how the consumer behavior is like here in like 2016, 2017. But now I think the taste has kind of evolved to be a little bit similar to what international is looking like, which is a great news,
But I think you can still do that without going over a certain point, right? Like as long as you're not playing what the headliner would play or whatever, then that's totally fine. But like in some of our rooms, especially in New York where they're expecting hip hop, like it's okay to dip down to hip hop, because if I'm the big room DJ, like, and I'm playing all the bangers, just don't play the same bangers as me, like, and
Yep.
You take a guy
Very
like me
important.
where I will dip down into hip hop. I love dipping down to hip hop, even if it's only for 3 songs and then I bring it back up, especially where I'm playing a lot of 140, 150 BPM EDM and the hip hop's at 70 or 75, like the Drake records. I'm going right down and coming right back up, you know? So I wouldn't look at it like that. As long as you're not playing my records or anything that I would play in my set and you did your research, then I'm totally cool with that, especially if that's what the night calls for. I think it's not about, like I always say, you could have the same records as me, but you'll never play them like I play them, you know? So I think it's about how you're playing the records. Like if you're banging stuff out like every minute, big room, then big room, then big room. Okay, then maybe you're doing a little bit too much energy, right? But if you're letting those big room records play out for maybe the 3 or 4 minutes, and then you're going to the next one, very smooth mixing, like you're not, you know, doing anything crazy, then I think they're not doing 1, 2, 3, everybody fucking jump, like right before the headliner. Like, you know, then it's fine. I think that's totally fine. Like you're not always going to get that same opening set. So there's ways to do it. It's just tasteful ways of doing it.
Correct. And it really takes years to kind of like master this because there really isn't a right way. That's why it's so hard for people to like kind of like tell you unless they are there to like physically watch your set and give you on-site feedback, which is like such a tedious thing to do, you know. You probably need to pay someone to do that.
Well, the right way of doing it is doing it the wrong way. And that's crazy oxymoron the way it sounds, but I didn't get to where I was if I didn't make those mistakes of knowing, okay, like I opened too hard this night. Let me switch it the next night. Or a booker was mad at me because I did it this way. Like making those mistakes is what makes you where you are today, you know? Like if it burns a bridge and ruins a relationship, okay, then do your best to amend that. But like most times it doesn't, and you just take that feedback and, you know, you keep going. But what I feel like with the Gen Z DJs is like, I'll give them feedback and they get offended and they're like, no, that's not right. Dude, it's not, this is like, it's not me coming at you. I'm giving you advice that I've used with my 15 years of experience and my success to do it. Do it this way next time and maybe you'll get a better result, you know? But they get very offended and they get like, you know, taken back from it. Like it's like a trip to their ego. It's not that. I'm just trying to help you out in this with all of the mistakes I've made. And that's, like you said, like you wish you had somebody like that. Well, that's where I step in as a mentor for these guys, you know, in my PURARI Production Academy, because I'm not just teaching them how to make music, which obviously that's the biggest thing here is like I'm teaching them how to produce music, but I'm also there as an artist coach where they're saying, well, I need to do this in my career or this happened that night. What can I do to help? Well, now you have me as like an on-demand guy where like it's like a hotline where it's like I can answer you and do that. I'm not doing that for everybody nowadays. I stick with my core students because those are the guys that are a reflection of me. And if you take a look at like guys like Silano, right? So Silano is one of my students and he just recently had support from Tiesto playing his Spaceman remix, I think in Singapore. I don't think it was Zouk though. I think it was Marquee. Maybe. Yeah. So he, and again, he's been frustrated the last couple months. He's not getting booked in Jersey. He's like, my music's so big, yada, 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 but like, I'm not getting booked. And I say, patient, young grasshopper. It's going to happen for you, right? Like, just wait. And then sure enough, he wakes up one morning and he gets a notification. Tiesto played your Spaceman remix at Marquee, Singapore. And he has the video footage of it and he's like, oh my God, like this is crazy, you know, and now he's inspired and motivated again. But he's another one that's like looking at this Jersey scene and not getting booked. But I'm like telling him, dude, just be patient, relax. I'm in his corner, like reassuring him that it's going to happen. Just keep producing. And now he's back on his horse producing and things are starting to happen for him. But it takes a while. And that if he wanted to be that big room bass house DJ, then he's got to keep producing. He can't keep playing the bar down the street and thinking that opportunity is going to happen for him because it won't. And yeah, it sucks. He can't DJ. He can't make his money. He had to get a full-time job, which is totally fine. But at the same time, there's going to be a point where he could now let go of that full-time job because he's playing and touring so much and making a good amount of money. So,
yeah, you really have to believe and see the big picture, basically. And another point that you made previously, right? We'll talk a little bit about PURARI Academy in a bit, but I just remembered a point, like because most gurus or coaches out there will always be telling people, it's best if you can if it's best if you can be like not the smartest person in the room. You know, you want to always be like learning in some ways, and it's always frowned upon to be like big fish in small pond. But then your point of like being the big fish in a small pond, right, kind of like resonates with me a little bit, because as I'm looking at some of like DJ Snake's collaboration, certain times you just collaborate with like a random Indian artist, but because this random Indian artist is like very well known in his community, right, that's how he kind of like have a reason to collab with him, you know?
Yeah.
Like you have your leverage basically. So I guess like that's also quite helpful to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at someone like DJ Snake, right, where he's always been, I guess, putting on like new talent. But, you know, I also believe that every song you make or every move you make, there has to be a decision behind why you do it, right? Like David Guetta isn't just releasing a song just because he's like, oh, I love this song. No, there's a marketing strategy behind it, whether that song is going to get him nominated for a Grammy or this song is going to get him in with a certain booker at a country, right? Like, so you take a look at like DJ Snake, like, yeah, he's putting on these young artists because the young artists will now look up to him and he'll create this sort of community and fan base around himself through putting that young artist on, you know? You take a look at someone like Hardwell as well, who put on Dyro and Danik, and, you know, you go to a Hardwell show, MAKJ especially, MAKJ, and you go to a Hardwell show or one of these guys' shows, and it's really a bunch of inspired producers at these shows. Like in the front row, it's all like guys with like, you know, Hardwell fan shirts on, even at MAKJ shows, because they get inspired to these artists from the guys putting on the younger artists, which I think is so awesome. And I think that's the cool thing about creating that sense of community around your brand, is that, you know, you're going to always have these fans. And then once you put them in touch with like a MAKJ or a Dyro or a Danik, like they become fans of that artist as well too. And everybody starts to win. So, you know, community is a big thing too. And just having that sense of community is hard for a lot of DJs to grasp sometimes, because they think they just show up and DJ. So, you know, think about that stuff when you know you're making your artist project. You know, I take a look at like Dub Vision. They have like the Visionaires, and then this is all back in the day. And then like, you know, those DJs had like they called their fans, but you know it worked, and it made a sense of community. They felt like they were a part of something.
Like just looking at the David Guetta example, right? You know, he was like saying before he met Morton, you know, he was like literally the biggest DJ in the world, but then he was like super uninspired, and then he went back to his Jack Back persona, right, back to the underground to get inspired before discovering Morton that created Future Rave. So it was like quite an inspirational story until the point that he started to do a original or remix of the I'm looking for a man in finance. Then I'm like, so what's the strategy behind that? You know,
right? Well, you're taking something that's viral like that, and you're using it to your advantage. And again, that one's weird because it like samples like a G6, but it's remade. I don't know. It's like a weird thing. But like, again, I think if you take a look at those credits, Kashmir is credited on that as Niles Dar Howell because he made like a G6. So like everybody's winning in that sense. And I'm sure it was probably pretty easy to clear that sample considering David Guetta was asking Kashmir to clear it. You know, that's how easy can that be? Especially because they're buddies. So, you know, I think like some of the best DJs are also the students as well. Like I always say I'm always a student of the game because in my free time, I'm always trying to learn. And I think this is what's been great about my PURARI Production Academy is that I learn a lot from my students because I'm constantly collaborating with other artists. And you take a look at someone like DJ Snake or Steve Aoki or David Guetta because they're always constantly collaborating with other artists because there's always something new to learn from collaborating with somebody. And for me, I used to never like collaborating because I always felt like, well, I'm doing 80% of the work and they're just sitting here, you know, doing nothing. I'm always the one doing all the work. Yeah, that was the sense in that case. But like now most of my collaborations happen with my students or other producers and I'm always learning something, you know, about that. Like I think one of the biggest things that I learned from the Hardwell Dioro MAKJ collaboration with Fat Man Scoop was in that project, the effects, all of the effects were actually just bounced from another song. So those effects were just like boop, popped in, like all the effects were already done. So there was like one channel of like uplifters, risers, downlifters, whatever, because it was already done in another song. And then we just chopped them up to just put them in the right places. So it's like, why reinvent the wheel when it's already done? And that's how some of these artists are able to spit out so many songs so fast, is that they're reusing their stuff. But I would have never learned to do that if I didn't collaborate with someone else.
Do you think that music is a numbers game since it is so subjective? Like, I can think song A is perfect, I release it into the world, but the world hates it, and I'm like devastated, as a, pure artist,
I used to think about that.
Is it just simply a number game?
Like, I used to think about, like, if I put out a song and it didn't stream well or it didn't sell well, then it was a failure. But that song that you put out into the world is an accomplishment by itself, because most artists, producers, whatever you want to call them, they can't physically put out the music. They'll sit there creating, they'll buy all this expensive gear, big studio like I have, and they'll create, and the music never comes out. It's just like a hobby for them. But getting the music out is the most important thing, and you never know, like, what song you put out might be someone's favorite song. So you mentioned like the Whistle remix before, right? Like, I'm thinking like, I'm putting it out, I'm doing it because it was a release on DJ Snake's premiere class, and it was pretty important for me. I had Amy Thompson, Snake's manager. I don't know if she still manages him at the time, but she managed Swedish House Mafia, and I was like,
she used to be Swedish House Mafia.
Oh my god, she's emailing me saying, "Hey, can you put the?" I'm like, I have Amy Thompson's email. I'm like, this is fucking amazing, like so like. When I was putting that out, I was like, well, not thinking anything of it. Like, I'm like, there's so much more bigger artists than me on this. Like, it is what it is. And then, to hear it from someone like you, like, yo, that's my favorite thing that you've ever done. It's like, wow, like, that's so cool to hear. And yeah, like, mine doesn't have the most streams on it. I think Nitty Gritties might have more than me, but like, it's your favorite song. And that's what makes it like really special to me, is that you found use out of that, So yeah, do I put out songs and the numbers suck? Absolutely. My track with Waka Flocka did 10,000 streams at the time. It was terrible, but I also got support from David Guetta, Laidback Luke, Blaster Jacks, like all of like some of my top idols at the time. And that's what, and I had a track with Waka Flocka. So for me, it's like, that's a win in my book, even though it didn't stream as much as I thought it was going to stream.
As long as it touch the right individual, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and it's such a cool time today, because right now, I think, me included, a lot of people aren't giving a fuck about the stream numbers or anything. They're just doing what they want to do and being, like you said, their authentic self, because a lot of the times people are making music for streams, and that still happens, but like, I think fans can now see through it. They want the authenticity. They want to see how the creative process is, or why you created this song. It came from like the heart, so I don't really chase that. I'm making music that I like to make, and if it does good, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. There's always another song that'll come out that may do good. So you never know what'll hit and what won't hit. I mean, you take a look at like Sigala, right? So this is a funny like example right now.
Sigala, yeah.
But Sigala did that song, I Came Here for Love.
Sweet nothing.
Well, he did a bunch of them, right? But he did that song, I Came Here for Love, and that song came out like 3 or 4 years ago or something like that. And it's just becoming popular because a popular US TV show called Love Island uses it as their theme song. And that song, it just blew up. Island. Yeah, that show blew up here in the US. Very big pop culture stuff here. Yeah. And, people are using it on TikTok.
It's on Netflix in Singapore, man.
Yeah, and dude, like, the song is like, Sigala made a TikTok where he does the trend with his song. He goes, hey, my name's Sigala. I produced this song. And he takes the suitcase and he goes in a circle with the suitcase or whatever. He goes, but I just released a new song like 2 days ago. Can you go check this out? Thank you for blowing up this song, but this song came out 4 years ago. So you never know when something will, kind of catch on.
Yep. That's true. Yeah, and then maybe now we can move on a little bit to PURARI Academy.
Yeah.
Is that like a step in the direction of, okay, I want to I love touring, but that's not the end game. This is the end game. Is that kind of decision that you make when you first created it?
No, not really. Actually, the decision was COVID hit and I lost all of my shows. So everything was done. Like my entire tour schedule coming up was done. I remember specifically like Ultra was in 2 weeks and I had to cancel Ultra because of COVID. And that was like a crazy year because I was staying with 4B in a hotel. Like we had all of our friends staying in a hotel. Like it was supposed to be a pretty fun year. And I had just finished my official remix for Laidback Luke and he was playing main stage of Ultra. And that was supposed to be like his Ultra weapon, like this big psytrance remix of his old track, My God. And everything stopped. So I like basically was not making money for a week and then 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And then it was like a month. And I was like, dude, how am I going to pay my rent? I'm not making any money here. Like my wife was working her job remotely, but I wasn't making any money. So I said, I'm not going to wait for the government to give me whatever it was, like $600 a week. I was making way more than that DJing. So I started PURARI Production Academy because I noticed that everybody was like learning a new skill at that time. Like people were learning how to cook, people were learning how to do this. So I said, for all the DJs that want to learn how to produce music, like let me start something here where I'm doing one-on-one coaching. And I was always doing it in the past and I've always wanted to start a school, but I just didn't have the time to do it. So I started with one student, then it grew to like 2 students, then that student told somebody else, and then it grew to 3. And then by like the end of the year, I had maybe like 10 students where I was doing one-on-one sessions and they were, you know, paying me to basically teach them how to make music. And it just started to grow and catch on. And it was weird because I was just teaching them kind of just what I knew and, you know, my expertise. And I think the word of mouth was kind of like insane because I really didn't do that much promotion besides a couple like Facebook posts about it on my personal Facebook and maybe a little bit on my Instagram. But I think the success that people had, it was like, whoa, this guy in like 6 months all of a sudden started releasing music and he just got it played on this live stream. Well, if he could do it, I could do it. And then it kind of grew. And then by like, I think the middle of 2022, I had this pretty successful business that was growing out of control. And even still today, I still think back and I'm like, how the hell did this happen? Like, I'm like this coach, this mentor, people want to listen to what I have to say. And I think a big part of it is the students that have had success. It's like real results, you know, like you have Silano who got supported by Tiesto in under 2 years of production. You have guys like Angelo the Kid who got supported by Diplo and Side Piece and all these little success stories happen. You have this guy that just got his dream gig because he's producing music. And it's been like that with word of mouth. And now it's like around here. And I wouldn't even say around here. I have students from Amsterdam. I have students from all over the place. I just recently had a student from Indonesia who just bought a course. And it's kind of crazy because they're like, well, if you want to do X, Y, and Z, if you want to produce music, well, here's your guy, you know? And you know, I'm not competing on the level of like a Cosmic Academy. My friend Zach Edward runs that or whatever. Like I don't have a whole curriculum. I do one-on-one mentoring. So you join my school, you just get a subscription based on what you want, and you basically have access to the one-on-ones with me. And then I work on your music and what your music needs, you know? So if you want to make melodic techno, well, I'm going to help you make melodic techno. If you're making piano house, well, I'm going to help you better your piano house with the right sounds and the right VSTs. So I think that's where a lot of people find a lot of, you know, I guess, usability in it because it caters to them. And it's not some YouTube course.
Customizable.
Yeah, it's not some YouTube course of this is how to make tropical house with Kygo. Well, yeah, you see how Kygo makes tropical house, but like, how do you translate that to your own music? And that's where I step in and kind of, you know, help people out. And I think a lot of people like to learn by watching somebody else do it. So it's like a collaboration, you know, it's like you sitting here in my studio watching me make music. And that's like invaluable, I think, to some people. So.
Yeah. And the medium is basically through Zoom.
It's all through Discord. My entire school runs on Discord. And why I like Discord is because Discord now works like a Patreon or I guess like OnlyFans, right? Where they have to subscribe, well, you could have a free server, and then if you subscribe, you get access to other parts of the server. So my community is free.
Yes.
You won't see the entire community, which is really where the gold is until you subscribe, but the community is free, and you could join right through my website, PURARIProdAcademy.com. And then once you subscribe to one of the 3 tiers, you get access to certain benefits. So let's say tier 1, I call it cum laude, because I base it on like a school and stuff like that. You'll get access to become a student, or if you buy a course, you'll get access to become a junior student, it's called. But cum laude, you get access to become a student, and you get access to my one-on-one schedule and like the hidden parts of the Discord. So you get access to the student section, you get access to the chats, all that good stuff. A lot of the resources, the place where I post plugins for sale, and you get access to my schedule, like I said, so you could book a one-on-one with me. But the first tier students can only book the Sunday before the week goes on. So like as of 2 days ago, the first tier students can book for the week. Then if you get tier 2, you can book the Friday before that. So you could book Friday for the next upcoming week. But it's a little bit more expensive, but you also get access to my exclusive content section. That's where I post codes for buying a plugin on Plugin Alliance for $1, or I'll record a video on how I mix and mastered this song for this artist, and you can see that. So you'll get access to the exclusive content section of it, sample packs, all that good stuff. Then the third tier, which is the coolest one, I think, you get to book a week in advance. So you basically get to, have the most flexibility on when you want to meet with me. And you also get access to all the previous stuff, but you also get access to the live stream section. So my track Insomnia, I actually made on the live stream in 3 days. So if you wanted to see how I make a song, or how I start a remix, or whatever it may be, how I organize music, I'll just hop in the live stream and start a stream, and whoever could join in could just sit there and watch. So again, it's like sitting in the studio with me doing, watching me make a track, or, doing whatever. And I think that is also a big reason, besides the fact that you can schedule your lessons, a week up to advance, why people want to join that community. But you're also in this space on Discord where it's like Reddit and Zoom combined, because yes, you can do video calls, you can share screens and all that, but you could also join this community of other like-minded producers where, you could meet a Silano or an Angelo the Kid and collaborate and do all these things with guys who are all learning on the same level as you, which is, again, invaluable.
I think this is the future of schooling, man, because right now everybody is going on strike, right? Like student loans, going for a degree is so ridiculous. And back in our day, to get a job, the degree is everything. It's all about the paper, It's like, okay, you can do A to Z, so what? You don't have a paper, it means nothing. But now I think the paper starts to, it's worth less and less, and it's about actual skills, actual portfolio, what you have accomplished that matters more.
Yeah, and think about like, I take a look at my brothers, they have regular, jobs, or I'll take a look at my dad, right? Like my dad came here, he moved here from Italy he's 1 out of 11 kids. And he was like, I think he might be the only one that actually went to college, or maybe like 2 of them, right? Like he is the only one that went to college. He had a good job. And now like I've seen him, like, unfortunately, just through corporate America, like through ups and downs of the way the market goes, like I've seen him get laid off from his jobs as well too, because they're going to always hire that next younger kid with the better degree or that knows the new stuff, right? So now you look at my brothers, one's an engineer, one kind of does the same thing as my dad with like computer stuff, and they're both going back to school to get another degree or another certification in order to make more money. Because right now in America, I would say in society, it's very, very normal for you to go to high school and then go right into college. And I did that. Like I went to school, I went to high school, I was a straight A student, and then I went into college, and like I didn't necessarily do as well as I did in high school, because the way they taught in college was different than the way they taught in high school. And I have a degree, I don't use it. I have a degree in biological sciences. I was going to school to be a doctor or whatever, but we're living in a time now where if you're good at something and you have a skill, you can just pursue that. And, I don't want to say like I pride myself in not using my degree. I'm happy I got my degree, but my skill, something that I learned by putting in blood, sweat, and tears, is what my career is, And if you do anything, it's photography, music, painting, I don't know, whatever it is. And I even just be passionate about it and just be the best you can be at it. And like you said, the future of schooling. I mean, I paid all this money through college. Well, fortunately, my parents paid for my college, but they paid all this money for me to go to college and all these textbooks and stuff. And guess where I learned 95% of my college education? YouTube. YouTube. If I couldn't do an organic chemistry problem, there was a YouTube video that showed me how to do it. If I didn't know how to do something, YouTube. So I'm going to like try and instill that in my daughter as well.
That's so true. But like what you say, right? During COVID, everybody is like trying to look for a course. And I myself went to register for masterclass. And one of the most significant ones that I got out of was Anna Wintour masterclass, and it's basically talking about like Anna Wintour is basically the Vogue editor-in-chief.
Oh, cool.
And then and she's basically stating that like Tom Ford, right? He's very good at design, but then he has a counterpart to do the business, because in order to be world class at something, you have to focus your energies on it. Like a minute that you are not working on the art, or a minute that you are doing the business, you are losing a minute on working on the art.
Yeah.
So for your PURARI Academy, do you have to have like a keen business acumen in order to make it successful, or you have a business partner for that?
It is 100% the biggest challenge I've had in the last 3 or 4 years, and probably the reason why I haven't been putting out as much PURARI music, because that business grew so fast and I was putting all of my eggs into that basket for a little bit. And that's why I fell back on the PURARI side of things. And it still is a challenge today, but I don't have a business partner. I run the entire thing by myself. So it's hard for me to basically do that, be PURARI, tour, and be a dad, And for a while I had a manager.
Crazy.
I didn't have one for like the last 6 years. And finally I just signed with new management agency because I can't handle all of that stuff. And then on top of that, I was like, I won't even say booking my own gigs, but these gigs were falling into my lap. Like, hey, we want to book you here. And I had to do all the negotiations and all that. So it was just too much going on. So now that I could focus on, whatever I have to focus on. And, I back earlier in my career, when I started a relationship with Laidback Luke, I used to meet him at a coffee shop because he lives right here in New York. And I lived right on the border of New York City and New Jersey. And I used to meet Luke for just talks in a coffee shop. Now, Laidback Luke was still is one of my idols, and it's still surreal to me that I'm like able to go to a coffee shop and just have a coffee with Laidback Luke and talk about life. And at the time, we were having this one chat I remember in a Starbucks, and I remember like I was just about to get married. I was like talking to him about my PURARI Production Academy and all these things I had going on, and he said, "Mikey, let me give you the best piece of advice." He goes, "You can only focus on 2 things." He goes, "You have all these things going on. You need to pick 2. And he goes, "I think you should focus on PURARI Production Academy because that is going so well for you, and focus on PURARI music. Everything else you do, the ghost production, the co-production stuff, like do less of it. Don't do it. Like you're not focusing on the right things." And I really took that with a grain of salt, or not with a grain of salt, with a heavy heart. And I was like, okay, I got to eliminate this, and this. So now moving forward, I got married. I did all this stuff. Now I have to focus on that and producing. Everything else in all aspects of my business, I have somebody else focusing on. So shows, gigs, I have my managers and agents that focus on that. If it's production opportunities, like that'll go through my PURARI Production Academy, but only if like I have an opening. Like let's say I have a very slow week in the PURARI Production Academy, then I could take on a ghost production. But PURARI Production Academy prioritizes over all of that stuff, So I think that having just somebody that can compartmentalize that stuff for you is important, but also know when it's time to get a manager and when it's time to get a business partner like a Tom Ford. Like eventually, yeah, there's going to have to be somebody that takes over this academy because I'm just simply not going to be able to do it, you know? So I recently just hired a new teacher. His name is Mark Roma. He's actually recommended from Laidback Luke. So he's taking some lessons and time off my plate from doing that while also giving his expertise to some of the students. So yeah, I mean, it's impossible to do all of this stuff at once.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think the true value comes with the one-on-one consultation. Like you are like tailor-made advice for the student that basically paid be it a high or a low fee, right? But whenever they pay, they always expect some sort of premium as compared to your standard how to make melodic techno kind of video.
Right.
And do you see value in these sorts of videos like Moon Boy, Excellent Sounds? I learned a lot from them, But then, I don't know. At this point, everybody's making this kind of videos. Do you think that if you make this kind of videos, you can still, I don't know, get some traction?
Well, so what I do personally is I host the courses live, right? So all my courses that I have for sale were previously hosted live, and they're all courses that are part of my quote unquote curriculum, right? So I had a lot of requests of like an influx of new students, let's say in 2022. I had like 10 new students that wanted to join. It was impossible for me to spend 10 hours to teach 10 new students how to sidechain a kick. So I invented the intro course where basically now I don't spend any time with new students. If you want to be a part of the Production Academy and you want to do one-on-ones and you have no music production knowledge, like if I do a call with you and I say, okay, this is an intro call, what's your experience? They say nothing, I immediately pull them towards there because I recorded that class, taught everybody those skills. You could work on it yourself and then go into have the foundation blocks to do one-on-ones with me. But those things help for me because that allows me to take new students in without having to dedicate my really valuable time to teaching, how to sidechain a kick. This is how you make a chord. You're going to learn all that in my intro course. Yeah, those forms of videos like the Excellent Sound, the Moon Boys, those are great because it's forms of content, right? And content is king right now. So whether it's this podcast or it's those videos, what's happening? Like they're getting bigger because it's ways to know the artist. They might not know Moon Boy's music. I can't name one Moon Boy song, right? I can't name one song from the guys from Excellent Sound, but I can name a tutorial they did or a technique they talked about, or even better, I've been recommending Excellent Sound a lot from their podcast with Afrojack. Loved that podcast, right? So that's how I'm getting to know these guys, and it's making more people aware of their other skills. And I think it's so important to have another skill like myself, where I don't just do PURARI, I have PURARI Production Academy, and I get bookings and opportunities through my PURARI Production Academy, not through the songs I make as PURARI, just like I'm sure
how?
So, for example, recently I just started working with a reality TV star who wanted to become a DJ. And it's from a very popular show here in the US. And through that experience, I was able to teach him how to produce, teach him how to DJ. Now I have him linked up with the right people through my academy and my resources to now put him on a tour. And now I'm playing a venue this Friday with him as a support DJ and opening new doors for myself to play new markets like Dallas and Boston that maybe they wouldn't book me for as PURARI, but because I'm his teacher and he's from a popular TV show, I'm actually getting bookings from it, which is crazy to think about, but that opens the door for me now to do those bookings by myself. Okay, I'm going to ride this coattail, but now I can, let's say, make friends with a manager or make a relationship or show them what I can do basically as a DJ. And maybe there's an opportunity to book me as a solo artist now, or I got a pretty big gig in this past year from producing for another artist. So instead of him paying me as a fee for co-producing, it was, I'll pay you a fee and I'll get you this show as a headlining DJ. Oh, okay, great. So yeah, that money that I got as the headlining DJ wasn't instantaneous as it was if I handed over a track, yeah, I got paid. It was money that was to be made, but I still made the same money. It's just that money was made at a later date and I got a show from it that I was a headlining DJ at. So those opportunities come from my school. They don't come from, PURARI, really. I mean, PURARI plays a part of it, but the other skills that I have now have been giving me more opportunities and have opened so many more doors through my skill and my PURARI Production Academy business than actually PURARI did, because I'm competing with Timmy Trumpets and Dioros and you and like everyone else around the world as just this big room DJ. But because I have this skill that other people gravitate towards me that they want, I'm able to do other stuff, which has been a really cool blessing.
Is it kind of like more people make more money selling shovels in a gold rush as compared to people trying to find gold?
In a sense, yeah, because, like right now, again, think about what does everybody want to do as a DJ? They like TikTok is making it, I mean, at least here in New York, everybody wants to be a DJ because they're seeing that, oh, this celebrity can be a DJ. This guy can do it because the technology is so easy. Like, then they're looking for somebody to show them how to do it. Well, here I am. I'm the guy to show you how to produce your own music, to show you how to DJ, whatever you need to learn how to navigate through the business. And they're also looking for what else? They're also looking for content. And guess what your number one form of content as a DJ is to produce your own music, because you're not going to get booked if you don't have your own music now. So now I'm using that platform to say, well, if you want to learn how to do it, everything yourself, well, you could come to me. Or you could go hire somebody to do it. And I'll do that too if I have the time to do it. But it's going to be for a much higher fee. So you might as well just learn how to do it with the business. And you think about it like, my business generates repeat customers. If I teach somebody a lesson, a one-on-one, and they don't like it, they're not going to come back. But if I do it, they have a success, and they come back week per week, and they keep seeing success, well, that generates a repeat customer. And that repeat customer, it's like a barber shop, right? You like a barber, you're going to go to that barber every week for 5 years, 10 years. I've been going to my barber for 10 years. I'm a repeat customer, And that generates a clientele and something like that. And that's what I'm doing here. But not only that, I'm creating a community around PURARI, which is cool.
Even in the video editing, putting out content on social media, the edits are all done by you.
Yeah, I suck at editing. I suck at video editing so bad. Like, I'm a great graphic designer. I was actually doing graphic design way longer than I've been a DJ. I started graphic design when I was like 10 or 11 years old, doing it for video game forums. They were called SIGs or signatures. So you would like make like a anime signature of like Dragon Ball Z, and you would have your forum name on it. It was really popular back in like video games back in the day. So I got really good at graphic design. So naturally when I did Mikey P and PURARI, I've always done my own graphics, but I couldn't edit videos. And now with like CapCut and all these things, like it took me so long to create content like for my Instagram because I wanted it to look a certain way, but I was too stubborn to pay somebody to do it for me. And I was like, I gotta learn. So I was trying Adobe Premiere and this and Final Cut Pro, and I just couldn't do it. And then I discovered CapCut, and they have a desktop app too. And I was like, not only could I edit from my phone or the computer, but it looks the way I want it to look. And now I'm spitting out content like this, which is great. But it's another skill that I developed because I'm stubborn where, I have to learn the skill. But now if other people like my content, and let's say I quit DJing, I quit tomorrow, fuck it, I don't want to do it. I can get a job doing graphic design, or I could get something making content for other people. And let's say you hired me to edit this podcast. Well, I can do it. I won't be the best at it. Maybe my rates are cheap at the beginning, but I'll do it for money, and I'll get better and better at it and improve my skills, and maybe do it for a living. Who knows? But that's why I like having multiple skills. It's so important.
Transferable skill sets, man. Yeah. The CapCut is literally like the video editor's sync button, man.
Well, the captions were so big for me, right? Like I needed a way to do captions, and like with a certain font and the way like they animated. So I tried it. Actually, I did a release for I actually did a release with Silano. It was my Fiend remix, and that was my first time attempting to do the captions, and I did them all manually, and it took me like 4 hours to do it until I learned about auto captions, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe I wasted that much time. And now I film something for 20 seconds, put the captions, and I'm done with the video in like 20 minutes, and it's content, So I'm slowly getting into it. I wish I did it a year ago, but I'm getting better at it every day.
it's the same as like when I'm editing on DaVinci Resolve or CapCut. I'm always doing everything manually until my girlfriend is like, hey, you can actually use auto caption. I'm like, what the fuck? There's such thing.
Game changer.
So I feel like, right, back in the day when, everybody that went through their degree, like for you, biomedical engineering, like for myself, electrical electronics engineering, it's all about that grind set, it's like about being hardworking. But it kind of reminds me of something that Bill Gates says. He always try to hire somebody that's lazy, right? Because the lazy person will always find the easiest and the fastest and the smartest way to do it. But whereas for us, it's like we are so hardwired to like do everything the manual way because it kind of worked for us in the past. But especially now with the whole entire resurgence of AI, right? Wow, the way we think about things has to be so different in a way that I guess that's how the younger generation starts to have an edge over us.
Yeah, because they
so how
know
do you,
it.
like kind of keep up.
They know it well, right? Like so to keep up with it. I have always been in like adapting new technology. So like I remember when Tractor came out before Serato. Not before Serato. Serato was around, but I was one of the early adapters of Tractor. I think I still have my Audio 8 box over here because Serato was like, it felt too restricted to me for what I wanted to do electronic music. And with Tractor, I had this controller. I could do 3 effects at once. I had the Tractor Control X1. I liked the way the beat grids were aligned. So I was one of the early adopters of that. Obviously, that didn't go too well. Tractor nobody uses, I don't think, anymore. But I've always been like trying to adapt a new technology. And even with AI, I was like, I could have that mindset of this old guy mentality, like, this is bullshit. Yeah, AI is gonna make songs for us, but we're, like it's like the same thing that the older DJs were doing with the sync button, right? Like they're like, oh, the sync button is the devil. Like I spent 20 years learning how to beat match. Okay, well times have changed now. You said the same thing about cell phones, right? Like my dad, he hated texting when texting was around. He hated texting. He was like, why do you gotta text? Why do I gotta spend all this money on texting for you guys as kids? Like, you could just pick up the phone and call somebody. Well, guess what? My dad is the biggest texter in the world now. He texts nonstop, right? So you could have that mindset or you could adapt to it. And I think in a case like Insomnia, I used AI. I don't think a lot of people know this, but Master Chief from Halo does the AI vocals on my track Insomnia because I thought his voice sounded like Maxi Jazz from Faithless on that record. So I took the Faithless studio acapella, put it into a Master Chief AI sing generator, whatever you want to call it. And now I didn't sample Insomnia, like the actual vocal. I had it sang by somebody else, which in this case was AI, and I was able to put it out because everything else I replayed. And that was the reason why I was able to put it out as an original, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Master Chief from Halo sings the vocals AI in Insomnia. So
do you have to like kind of clear it if you get someone to sing it? Because usually you release songs through labels, right? But for people like us, we do self-release. We release through DistroKit. We release through DistroKit and probably TuneCore, and there's an option for you to select where you can select release as a cover of a song. Do you release it as a cover or is actually an original?
No, you do have to release it as a cover because you're covering someone else's song, So for that one, I think on DistroKid, that's what I use is you can say, I wrote this song or another person wrote this song. So you select the other person, you fill in whoever, you obviously have to do your research and found out who, wrote the song, and you enter that, and then they'll go on your behalf and get you that mechanical license so that you could put the song out as you're the performer, but you didn't write the song, So it's still an original. It's still a way, like, for example, I could have put that out as Faithless Insomnia PURARI bootleg or PURARI remix, but like, why do that when I could just put it out as like an original and show my cover version of how I reimagined Insomnia, And there are cases where I'll still put out free remixes and bootlegs, but I thought that was a cool one where I could, try it out as an original, just like as I did with MAKJ on Beautiful Life, because that's a song by Ace of Base. And we had somebody re-sing the vocals, different lyrics, obviously, but for the most part, it kept true to the original. And that was a cover, and we were able to get that cleared. So,
right. So all these like EDM remixes like, you know, I'm seeing like a freaking 1,000 version Afro House remix, 1,000 Afro House remix of Milkshake.
Yeah.
You know, like Shawty got them apple bottom jeans, and then you're like feeding it in with like a reverse bass kick. All these are like basically you distribute it as cover music.
If they're
right?
going out on Spotify, yeah. But what most people do is like we've always done for SoundCloud is just remix a song that you like, put it out for free. You get a fan or a follower in exchange of that, and you know, you have a product that people are familiar with.
Download gate.
But yeah, and you'll get a download gate to get you followers on other platforms, and you'll become bigger as an artist with more followers through your remixes. And that's how I made a career. It's how MAKJ made a career. It's how a lot of people did. But if they're getting it replayed or resung, for example, like if they do like a kick bass record with, you know, I don't know, Get Low, Yin Yang Twins, and they get somebody else to re-sing it, then yeah, you could put it out as Get Low by PURARI or LENERD or, you know, whatever. And yeah, you could put it out as a cover technically, which again, make it tasteful, but you know, that's what a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah, it's the trend right now. And maybe like before we kind of like close off the podcast, maybe we can go a little bit about like your daily routine, how you keep yourself sane, doing so many things.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely has changed since becoming a dad because my days have gotten earlier, but it was actually pretty cool because, you know, MAKJ is one of my good friends and he is such a routine guy, and I didn't really have a routine. I think that's something that I was always looking for, but this guy's routine is like insane. And you know, I stayed with him in Vegas for like a couple days and I kind of just saw his routine and I was like, I need to incorporate something like this at home. But basically, you know, Mac wakes up at like 5 o'clock because Vegas is 3 hours behind New York time. So that's 8 o'clock New York time. And when you think about European time, so spinning records and all that, we're 6 hours behind here in New York. So he's 9 hours behind, right? So he wakes up at 5 a.m., makes his coffee, takes all of his phone calls, does all of his business pretty much in the morning. And then, you know, he goes and does X, Y, and Z, works in the studio, whatever. So I kind of incorporated that into my workflow where now my daughter wakes up around 7 a.m. It's not 5 a.m. because I don't have to wake up at 5 to, you know, talk to the European offices as much because by the time I wake up at 7, they're pretty much up. But basically, I wake up at like 7:30 a.m. I have my coffee. I'll watch or play with my daughter for a little bit. And as I'm doing that, I'm working on business stuff. So checking my emails, answering people on clients on Discord, like as soon as I wake up, looking at my schedule and appointments for the day. And then the minute, like, you know, I put my daughter down for a nap around 9 o'clock, that's where I'll go into the studio. So I'll get into the studio. I'll take maybe my first appointment at 9 o'clock, and I'll do appointments anywhere from, you know, 9 a.m. all the way up till 6 p.m. And those are my working hours in the studio now. And previously it used to be like a 9 to 5 thing. And when I mean 9 to 5, it was not 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It was 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And that just didn't work out. Like, there's still some nights where I'm creative and I'll stay up till 4 or 5 a.m. and work, but that doesn't happen as much anymore. So I try and stick to it a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 6, let's call it, in the studio. And then my 6 o'clock p.m. is my hard cutoff because then I'll, you know, go upstairs, I'll hang out with my family, I'll give my daughter a bath, you know, the whole family nighttime routine. And then if my wife chooses to go to bed early, you know, we're lucky enough where our hobbies are actually like our jobs as well. So like if I want to get an extra 2 hours in the studio from like 10 to 12, I'll do that. So I'll probably go to bed around 12, 1 o'clock, and then, you know, it repeats. And I try to go to bed around midnight as much as like I can, because if I'm touring or playing till 2 in the morning, like it gives me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to keep awake. But if it's longer than that, you know, I'll go to sleep, you know? So I had a long weekend this weekend, so I was in bed at like 10 o'clock, but that's pretty much my Monday through Friday. And, you know, in between that 9 to 6 or even after that, I'll always incorporate the gym. And my managers are funny because like, when I go to the gym, I take like a pre-workout drink as well. It's like my afternoon coffee, and it's equivalent to like 3 cups of coffee, but that helps me get through my workout.
Damn.
But it gets me all jittery and like ready to go. And my manager's always like, "Are you on pre-workout? Because you're firing off all these questions and like stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at the gym." Because I'll do a lot of my business phone calls at the gym, and I'm crazy. Like I don't listen to music in the gym because I listen to music nonstop all day. So like, yes. I'll talk on the phone, or like I'll listen to a podcast, like, or I'll just like I say like I raw dog the gym, where I'll just put my headphones in and just put the noise canceling on so I don't listen to anything. But this is what I do, and that's my routine, and I love it. It works for me. I feel the most creative now when I wake up and I have my coffee and I'm ready to go. And it's just, I think getting into that routine and making it a part of your daily thing to get into the studio is super important, because I used to only even open up my DAW when I had an idea. And I think through COVID kind of put me on a routine as well, because I had to wake up and do the same thing every day because there was nothing else to do. So, because we were locked in our house. So I think like waking up every day and opening up Ableton or Logic, whatever it was at the time, like forced me into doing that 5 days a week. And now if I don't have an idea, I'll open it regardless, and I'll just see what I can do. I'll go through sounds, I'll go through samples, but I'm always opening Ableton at least once a week, or sorry, one day a week.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a Eminem thing, like when Akon went to record, I think it was Smack That with Eminem. And then he was like late, and then it was like 5 p.m. Then Eminem was like just leaving the studio. Then Akon was just entering. It's like, "Hey, aren't we gonna continue?" And then he's like, "Nope, it's 5 p.m. It's hard cut off. I have to go back to my family and shit." Yeah, and that's actually in the long run you get to do more stuff, because you're so organized with your time.
Yeah, this is my time frame, fatigue. And if I don't get what I have to get done here, then I consider the day a fail. Like if I do so much work in the studio, but I don't go to the gym for that 1 hour, my wife will tell you, like, I get into a bad mood because I didn't accomplish the day. But if I can go into the studio and then go into the gym and then still, even though I'm dead tired, and make it home, I still feel good about myself because I finished the day, So going through that routine for me really helps me just to stay on point and be in a good mood and feel like I've accomplished something, So
yeah. Like whenever I feel like slacking off, I just put on some David Goggins or Jocko shouting in my ear.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I tend to reward myself for working hard during the week. Like I love sneakers. I love fashion. I love all that stuff. So like, if I had a really tough week and I got through it, yeah, I'll splurge a little bit on like a nice shoe, like an off-white Nike or a Travis Scott or something. Or if I had a hard month, only because like that's my way of like rewarding myself. But also when you think about it, like I love fashion, sneakers, and music so much. That's my like persona. Like my brothers, they have to buy suits, and maybe they'll buy expensive suits, maybe they buy cheap suits because they have to wear that to work. When I go to work, I wear Travis Scott sneakers and Fear of God and Rude and Off-White. So like when one piece comes in, I'll sell an older piece, and like, that's just my way of like, rewarding myself, making me feel good about myself. Cause I always say when you look good, you feel good, you perform good, right? So I'll do that, and it's like a new outfit for work. Like I just recently bought a whole bunch of new clothes. I was in the city. My brother-in-laws came from Arizona and they love going to New York City. So we hit Soho yesterday. We went to Kith. So I got a couple new pieces from Kith that I could like wear on the road now. So like, all good things that like, I'm like, you know what? I've worked hard like last month, really hard. I had a really hard week. I have a tour coming up. Like, let me, have some fun and splurge.
Yeah. So updating both the DJ library and the DJ wardrobe, man.
It's important. Yeah. And I think the wardrobe is so important to your look. Like, I always say the minute like somebody else, like another DJ starts wearing a brand that I wear, like I stop wearing it, and I move on to the next thing. Like, right. I was talking about this in a podcast the other day, but like back in the day, like when maybe about the term Guido, like from Jersey Shore, right? So the TV show with Paulie D, he's a Guido. It was a lifestyle. So you would spike your hair, you would wear these bedazzled shirts like Ed Hardy and Affliction and Famous and all this stuff. And I was wearing that in middle school. and all of these kids were very preppy. They were wearing Abercrombie and Hollister and all these brands. And they would always like make fun of me or try and make fun of me. Like, yo, you're a Guido. Like, you wear all these stuff. But then Jersey Shore came around and it became popular to wear that stuff. And I was already on to the next thing because all those kids started wearing Ed Hardy and this and that. Oh, I was on to the next thing. And like even now, like with the baggy pants trend, like I'm like 5'8", 160 pounds. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but like baggy pants are in. So like I'm wearing baggy pants and people are like, dude, those pants are huge. What are you doing wearing them? Well, guess what? Now baggy pants are in and all the brands are doing baggy pants and crop t-shirts. Yeah, I'm wearing that still, but I'm on to the next thing now, you know? And that's my look. I always try and stay on top of like the newest fashion trends and streetwear. And that's what inspires me. Like design, music, creativity, like it all inspires me. Like I think, again, you could say what you want about him. I try and separate the music with the art or the person from the art, with this sense. But Kanye, like his art forms.
Oh my God, I was just thinking about Kanye the moment you said that.
Like you take a look at like the Yeezy foam runner. I use this as an example for my students and people hate on that shoe. They're like, that's ugly. But when you look at it, people love wearing Crocs, right? So what's the difference between that shoe and a Croc? They both come in crazy colors. They both have holes in them. They both are made from the same foam material, but people love Crocs, but they hate the way that shoe looks. And I'm like, this guy's a genius. He wanted to make his version of a Croc. So he did what he did, had his designer. They came up with this version of Kanye's version of a Croc, put it in his color palette, his touch, his design with that, how it looks on foot. And, some people hate it, some people love it. But then you take a look at what he did with the Yeezy Boost and how everybody wears that shoe because that was his interpretation of the Ultra Boost from Adidas, this sock-like shoe. And it's so inspiring when you think of that stuff. Like even like Virgil Abloh with Off-White and how he deconstructed things and put them back together. Well, guess what? I love that because that's what I do with music. I deconstruct songs to the point where I understand how they're made and then I put it back together in my own way. And that's what I teach my students. I'm like, you look at this Off-White t-shirt and you think it's this brand new fucking design. Well, no, he just took apart another t-shirt, learned how it was manufactured, and then Virgil manufactured it in a different way, his way, And it's like, that's what we do in music because everything in music is already done. It has already been made. So all we're doing is we're taking things that inspire us and and learning how it's made, deconstructing it, and then putting it back together in a way that we think is cool. And that's why I love how fashion, music, and art and everything like ties into each other, So it's just something that I've always carried with me. And I think being a DJ, falling into sneakers was like a natural thing. And then falling into fashion because you always want to look your best for the club. Like I always try and look and present myself as like when you walk into the room or when PURARI walks into the club, you're like, damn, who's that guy? Like he's got the fit on and he's got the haircut and like it's just about the look, and that's what I love. That's what I know and love.
At the end of the day, we are all still entertainers, man.
Yep.
And the look is so important.
Super.
That it's undervalued, especially in the EDM scene. It's like, in the beginning of the podcast, why nobody is saying that? Why Justin Bieber didn't write his own song?
Right.
Nobody is saying about that.
But why does Marshmello wear a marshmallow on his head? Or why does DJ Snake never take off his glasses? Or why does Timmy Trumpet wear the hat with the trumpet and never takes off his glasses? Like there's always a look. So like, oh, that's Timmy Trumpet. Or that's, so-and-so. Outside of the brand, let's call it, they're normal people. They'll take off their glasses. Like, I don't think DJ Snake goes to bed with his sunglasses on, but when he's DJ Snake and he's out and about, he's got the sunglasses on, So it's part of his look. And it's so important to have that look for your brand and do something outside the box. Do something that you love and incorporate it into that. And for me, sneakers, music, art. That's why I try and incorporate into everything.
Thinking about your schedule that you were saying just now, right? Like you kind of have to keep multiple things in mind, your business, your family, as well as like if there are potential tour opportunities coming around, you do not want to like sleep too early on your normal days because if not, you will not be used to the midnight DJing kind of thing, right? But then versus MAKJ, who I think travels around the world touring quite a lot as well. How does he even maintain that 5 a.m. thing? Is that even possible?
It is, but I want to go back to like Laidback Luke again, because he does it even cooler. So Laidback Luke actually stays on New York time. So the other day he was in like Tokyo or Australia or whatever, and it was 4 p.m. in New York, but it was 4 a.m. in Australia, right? Kind of how like I think are on complete opposite time zones. Like I think it's like 10:30 at night. Yep. It's 10:30 a.m. here. So what he does is he'll like wake up and go for walks at, maybe it's not the best thing, but like at 4 a.m. he'll stay up for that. And then when it's time for him to sleep, he'll sleep. But if his show is at like 1 o'clock in the morning, it's really 1 in the afternoon here. So if you could just stay on New York time or wherever your time zone is, or somewhere around that vicinity, then you're okay. Because going like back to my biology degree, your body likes to stay on a circadian rhythm. It likes to stay on a certain thing. And yeah, if it's dark out and you're walking around taking a stroll, that fucks with it a little bit, but your body will still know, yes, I'm on New York time. And I think working out and having a workout routine also really helps with that, because you feel more energized. And if you do get thrown off, you can hop right back into it. Like I know for me, when I come home, I hop right back into my routine. Like I never even left, because maybe some nights you'll have to go to bed earlier. Like when I come home from touring on a Sunday or a Monday, like I'm not staying up till 5 a.m. I'm going right back to my routine. Yep. And if I have to go to bed an hour or two earlier to get back on the routine and feel refreshed, then I have to do that. Like this weekend was a lot for me. I went to bed at like 10:30 every single night. So now I'm back on my routine starting today, because we had a holiday yesterday here in the US for Labor Day. But now
Labor Day.
Yep. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm in my routine in the studio. And then Friday, I go back on the road. And again, that's an early flight. So waking up early helps, because now I'll wake up at 6 a.m. for my flight instead of 7:30 a.m. with my daughter. And I'm right back on the routine, And yeah, maybe I have to have a couple of Red Bulls or coffees like right before I play the club, but it's fine. And then I'll play the club, fly back the next day, and hop right back into it. Like I know this weekend I have to play Dallas. I have a 7 a.m. flight back home, back here to New Jersey. And then I have a 30th birthday party to attend for a friend, a close friend. And then I'll I'll go to the club. It's called Hoboken. It's a party town, like right outside of New York City, right across the river here in Jersey. And I have to headline a club from 12 to 2. And then Sunday, I'll like relax, enjoy, get back on my routine, so I could go do the same thing the next weekend, where I go to Pennsylvania, to Penn State, college town. And the next weekend, my brother gets married, and I'm flying to Boston the night before his wedding to play a show, and then waking up, taking the first flight out, and then coming back like crack of dawn, like 9 a.m., 7:30 a.m. flight, coming back at 9 a.m. so that I can make my brother's wedding by 1 p.m., and I'm the best man. So if I don't make it back, the wedding doesn't happen. But yeah, that's why it's important for me to stay on a routine so I can do these things.
Yeah, I think like what you said, Laidback Luke literally takes this to the whole new level. He has his own like Tai Chi Kung Fu master traveling with him and all.
Yep.
I don't know, is it still happening still?
He's still mentor. I have a couple students that joined my academy from knowing Luke and through my releases with Laidback Luke, which is pretty cool. And they're also are students with him for his Kung Fu students. So they work out, he does Kung Fu, and he still does virtual Kung Fu training sessions. And that's something that he's passionate about. And you take a look at like Laidback Luke's visuals. What are they? They're Kung Fu. It's like him doing Kung Fu stuff. So he incorporates the things that he's passionate about into his brand. And I think that if you are passionate about whether it's video games, maybe your visuals are like, Pac-Man eating your logo, or I don't know, something that you like, because that's what makes it you. That's what makes it feel authentic. And I think a lot of guys try to be somebody they're not, when all you really have to do is just be yourself, and people will like that about you. So
yeah, and you don't need the whole world to like you. Just a small percentage is actually a lot of people.
There's 7 billion people in the world. And if you think about what 1 million people, if they like you, you're doing a pretty good job. So
yeah. Okay, great. Thanks so much for this podcast. Oh, today is like amazing value town. I love it.
Well, thanks
we definitely
for having me. I know we were trying to get on this for a little while, and we finally made it work. So I'm happy we were able to do it.
Yeah, dude, it's like I love the fact that you're constantly like reinventing yourself. I like the fact that like certain podcasts like Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, they can get like Elon Musk round 4 because he's just doing so many things. Every year is like a brand new person you're talking to.
Right.
You know? He's like, oh, I just invented this shit. I just invented another thing.
Yeah, and I learn a lot from touring and traveling from other DJs. Like going back to like the student or the teacher being the student as well. Like these other guys on a podcast just recently talked about me, where they were like, the question was at the end of the podcast, who's someone that you want to put on? Like at the end of the platform or at the end of the podcast, we like to put on somebody that you want to talk about. Like who helped you along the most in your career? And these DJs, they said me. And I was like, you could have named out anyone in the world, but you thought me. And it's because when I went to a new city, which was St. Louis at the time, so shout out to Robson Charles, they they took me around the city and they toured me around. So at the same time, I was so grateful for that I, gave them an insight on touring and all the things that we talked about today. And they were like, dude, we wouldn't be touring without this guy. Like he changed our mindset, and I think that's where I'm starting to learn. That's where my biggest skills are, is that people like to come to me for advice, whether it's for a coach or, whatever it may be. So that's why I'm really starting to do more of this stuff and podcasts, because I think there's always something for somebody to learn from where I've learned in my experiences and, more. So it's super valuable. And I love how podcasts are becoming popular now.
Yeah, it's really like what you say, the best medium to put your authentic self forward, especially with AI. Everything can be faked, social media persona and everything. People just want to, see the real deal and maybe hopefully live vicariously through people's adventures,
Yeah, for sure. Be your authentic self. That's all I can say. Because nobody can replicate you. You're unique. You're one of a kind. So if you just become you, that's something that separates you from the rest. And then you take a look at every producer. Oh, I want to be John Summit. I want to be this. Well, there already is a John Summit. There already is a Fisher. There already is that person. Just be you, and that's the best thing that you can do to separate yourself from everybody, is just be you.